to solve a problem like TB.
I reached out to the NIH for a comment on these cuts. In response, they said, NIH supports international scientific collaboration when it is conducted in a secure, well-justified and responsible way. NIH maintains strict stewardship of federal funds and gives national security concerns close attention. The agency must have clear visibility into when U.S. taxpayer resources support foreign institutions or personnel. Tuberculosis is caused by a bacteria, which doesn't respect borders. If lessons from the COVID pandemic have taught us anything, it's that the world is smaller than we imagine. If we want to strive to end the burden of this disease, the work being done in the clinics around South Africa is crucial to future vaccines, treatments, and diagnostics. This is a delicate scientific ecosystem, perhaps more than people realized. Protecting it is in everyone's interest, a case made very clearly by Loyolo, the basketball fan from Khayelitsha. And do you feel like being part of a clinical trial where the information can leave South Africa and impact patients all over the world? How does that make you feel?
I can say it makes me feel as the chosen one because I get to give people my testimony, you see, so I can give a lot more people hope that you can go through this and get through it.
Assignment was produced and presented by me, Sandra Canthal.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us today on CBC's Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app, and on YouTube if you're watching this morning. Hello. Sunny day ahead in Winnipeg. Our temperature is going to fall to -7 this afternoon, but we're still on the mild side, which seems a bit like the wild side if you're driving. It's pretty icy out there in Winnipeg this morning. It is also mainly sunny in Brandon, and today your temperature is going to fall also to about -9 today. And then in Thompson, periods of light snow, your temp falls to -14 this afternoon. So we're all going to dip down. Thanks for being here. Corey Funk is here as well, directing the program. Good morning, Corey. Corey will be on the air covering the commute. Good morning, Mr. Abby Adiyemi, behind the controls of the show, our lead tech. We'll hear Abby covering weather on air. And then there is Mr. Brad Lillies in our control room. Good morning, Brad. Brad is covering our YouTube stream. Heather Wells is also here today, and she is from our newsroom live next with our headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, it could be months before damage at Pimicikamak Cree Nation is repaired. That's according to the lead plumber brought in to do assessments of a frozen water catastrophe. A days-long hydro outage left hundreds of homes with frozen pipes and flooding. Critical infrastructure in the community also damaged. Todd McConnell, who is the lead plumber, says it's hard to find a plumber in southern Manitoba and even harder to get them to go to the north. So we'll hear from him coming up. Manitoba school divisions have told the province how they plan to improve safety after a scary incident in Winnipeg a few weeks ago. Divisions were ordered to conduct a review after a convicted sex offender grabbed a student in a bathroom of a St. Vital school. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
And Heather, I just want to confirm with you, because you're in earlier than all of us, Highway 1 perimeter to Portage, Highway 2 perimeter to Road 12 West, still closed, right?
No update yet. I'm going to look at that as soon as I get back to my desk. But yeah, that was early. That was like around 2 o'clock this morning. So we'll see what's going on. They said blowing snow was the issue.
Yeah, I still haven't seen an update either. So between the two of us, it looks like our latest information is it's still closed. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So be careful out there with that blowing snow. And as I mentioned, icy through the city. Well, coming up, we're going to hear the very latest out of the United States. FBI are investigating in Minneapolis. An ICE officer has fatally shot a woman there yesterday. Conflicting accounts of what happened from the feds and from the city officials. So stay tuned. That's next.
On Cue.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. The Canadian filmmaker Zacharias Canuck's new movie is a love story inspired by traditional Inuit stories he heard growing up. He'll be here to tell you about it and what he hopes his films can give audiences 100 years from now.
I wanted to create the past so I could have something to work with.
Cue. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
A member of our community was killed in this very spot protecting her neighbor. Her name was Renee. Her name was Renee.
Outrage and grief in Minneapolis overnight at a vigil for 37-year-old Renee Good. She was killed by ICE agents during an immigration raid yesterday. Minnesota officials are furious. And across the United States, in New York, Sacramento, and Orlando, people took to the streets last night to protest against ICE. The Trump administration is doing damage control, and the CBC's Willie Lowry is tracking the latest in our Washington bureau. Willie, the White House and officials in Minneapolis have very different takes on why Renee Good was shot. What are they saying?
Yeah, one event, multiple videos, and two very different perspectives of what happened. President Donald Trump posted about the incident at least twice on social media, calling the killing justified. His Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, accused the woman, Renee Nicole Good, of weaponizing her car.
This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism.
State and local officials, however, are incensed over the Trump administration's characterization of events and the loss of life. Here's Minnesota's Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan.
Renee Nicole Good should be alive. She was killed by an ICE agent, and the video footage that we have seen with our own eyes tells a very different story from what we're hearing from Kristi Noem and Donald Trump.
Multiple law enforcement agencies are now investigating. What is the latest there?
The FBI is investigating the incident. Here in Washington, Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has been saying the masked ICE agent who pulled the trigger should be criminally investigated to the full extent of the law. That's a sentiment shared by Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, who is demanding immigration and customs enforcement officers leave the city. At the state level, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension says it too will investigate ICE's use of force and whether any laws were broken.
Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. U.S. President Donald Trump says it is not clear how long the United States will maintain oversight of Venezuela. In an interview with the New York Times, he said it could be much longer than a year. Trump said his administration would be taking oil, getting oil prices down, and giving money to Venezuela. He also said his officials are getting along very well with Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez. But it is not clear how well the U.S. president is getting along with the leader of Colombia. President Gustavo Petro spoke to Trump on the phone yesterday after encouraging the citizens of Colombia to demonstrate against U.S. military action in South America. As Paul Hunter reports, that conversation appears to have eased the tension between Trump and Petro.
We spoke on the phone, said Colombian President Gustavo Petro, for an hour or more, describing his surprise call with U.S. President Donald Trump late yesterday. The same Donald Trump Petro had recently described as having a senile brain, part of a verbal cage match between the two leaders in the days prior, but especially since the U.S. under Trump moved in on Venezuela, arresting its president, Nicolas Maduro. Trump later seeming to suggest the same could follow in Petro's Colombia. The issue there, said Trump, drug trafficking. Tensions escalated quickly. Now, maybe not so much. In a surprise post on his Truth Social platform yesterday, Trump himself wrote, "It was a great honor to speak with the president of Colombia, who called to explain the situation of drugs and other disagreements that we have had. I appreciate his call and tone." Petro telling a large crowd in Bogota that he told Trump much of the ill feelings between the two stemmed from lies told by his political opposition. All of it after a day of national protest in Colombia organized by Petro against Trump. One Petro supporter telling CBC News at one of the demonstrations, Donald Trump is a man who is insane and has a sick mind. Trump says he'll meet with Petro at the White House sometime soon. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Cucuta, Colombia.
Ukraine says nearly 800,000 homes and businesses are in the dark this morning after a series of Russian strikes.
Вночі ворог завдав чергового удара по українській енергетиці.
Ukraine's acting energy minister says the strikes targeted energy facilities in Dnipropetrovsk region in the country's southeast, and the area was in a near total blackout overnight. The minister says crews are still working to restore power and heat. Nearly 300,000 Ukrainians have fled the war for Canada, and about 10% of them have been living in Quebec. But those who hope to stay say it's becoming increasingly more difficult in that province. Natalia Weichsel has more.
Ina Cherevatenko welcomes her last client for the day. She's a massage therapist working in Montreal. Cherevatenko came to Quebec in 2022 after fleeing the war in Ukraine. But she says that even after learning French and planting roots in the province, her family's future here is uncertain. Like many Ukrainians, Cherevatenko came to Canada under the Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel, a temporary status that allowed Ukrainians to work or study. She was then hoping to apply for permanent residency through the Quebec Experience Program, also known as PEC. But late last year, the province canceled it.
The consequences of PEC closure is tremendous.
Alexandra Melnikova is an immigration consultant. She says the only option for those wishing to stay in Quebec is the Skilled Worker Selection Program, a pathway that is very selective.
Realistically, the only one option for them is to move outside of Quebec.
A petition at Quebec's National Assembly calls for permanent residency status for these Ukrainians. In a statement, the Immigration Ministry says it can't comment on the petition because it's still in the process of gathering signatures. Michael Shvek is the president of the Quebec chapter of the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress.
We have been in contact with the provincial government.
Shvek says he plans to meet with the immigration minister at the end of the month to discuss the future of those wanting to stay in Quebec. Natalia Weichsel, CBC News, Montreal.
Australia will hold a public inquiry into anti-Semitism after the attack on Bondi Beach.
Our government's priority is to promote unity and social cohesion, and to go forward knowing that just like people who gathered that night on Bondi Beach were committing to, that light will prevail over darkness.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the Commission will investigate the role of anti-Semitism in the attack. It will also look at its prevalence in Australian society. 15 people were killed in the shooting on Sydney's Bondi Beach during a Hanukkah celebration. The father and son accused of carrying out the attack were allegedly inspired by ISIS. A report is due on December 14th. That date will mark 1 year since the attack. Close to 1 million Canadians are estimated to be taking GLP-1 medications for weight loss. They are drugs that mimic a natural gut hormone that controls blood sugar, slows down digestion, and makes you feel full. Now new research is showing what happens when you stop taking them. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa has more.
It just wasn't good enough for me to continue on with it.
Months after starting Ozempic, Heather White quit cold turkey. The Toronto resident said side effects, nausea, and digestive issues were too much.
The whole period was a struggle.
And she's not the only one to ditch the meds.
Around 50% of people are discontinuing treatment within 12 months of starting.
Sam West is the lead author of new research published in the British Medical Journal. It found that people who stop taking a weight loss drug regain the weight, returning to their original size in less than 2 years. Certain health benefits from the drugs, like lower blood pressure, were also reversed when people got off. In comparison, people who quit diet and exercise programs regained the weight at a slower rate.
What we found particularly shocking was just how fast weight was regained after people stopped taking medication.
Sometimes they can't stay on medicine because they've lost coverage or access to the medication, or they have side effects.
Sonia Reichert is a family doctor in London, Ontario. She says people are often surprised to hear that weight loss drugs are a lifelong commitment.
Obesity is a chronic disease, and like most of our other chronic diseases, like high blood pressure, we wouldn't imagine stopping high blood pressure medications.
One major drawback, majority of the studies in this new research didn't track people for longer than 1 year. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, it's been warm, but that means that it is really slick out there if you're driving. Thanks for joining us this morning in Winnipeg and heard all across Manitoba. Appreciate having you with us. This is CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This hour on your morning show, Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. We're going to be looking at what's happening at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. They are temporarily closing their doors, but only for about a week. We're going to talk to them about the quick closure and also what's upcoming at the CMHR for 2026. In addition, stuck in Phase 1, the state of the Gaza peace plan and what the future might hold. We'll have analysis of that. And we will take you back to the city of Minneapolis for a bit more extensive coverage of yesterday's fatal shooting of a woman by an ICE agent. Stay with us. Heather Wells is in with other news headlines this morning from our province. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, months of work and millions of dollars. That is what it's expected to take before things get back to normal in Pimicikamak Cree Nation. A days-long hydro outage, as we've been telling you, left hundreds of homes with frozen pipes and flooding. Critical infrastructure in the community also damaged. Todd McConnell, lead plumber brought in to do assessment, says fixing these pipes is just the first step. He says there will also be leaks behind walls and growing mold. So we'll hear more from him through the morning. A recent spike in hate-related crime in Winnipeg has seen swastikas spray painted on a mosque and a high school this week. This comes just days after vandalism at a Jewish synagogue and a Palestinian restaurant. Avram Sharak, a Jewish Winnipegger, thinks the province needs to do more to punish those who spread hate. So we'll hear more about these stories coming up at 6:30. And Marcy, I just got off the phone with the good people at Infrastructure and Transportation, and they do say those two highways, the perimeter between Winnipeg and Portage la Prairie, also that Highway 2 area and the perimeter, still closed because of blowing snow.
Okay.
And
all right.
expects to be closed at least until the mid-morning rush.
Okay. Thank you for the update, Heather. Appreciate it. So that's, as Heather and I were wondering about, because it started sort of overnight, but as she just mentioned, until the mid-morning rush. So take care if that is on your morning commute. Corey will be in with more commute update in just a moment. Let's turn our attention to the forecast here. Abby Adiyemi is in, as always, giving us what's happening in the weather. Hi.
Yeah, good morning, Marcy. That mild condition still continues, but that blowing snow causing issues on the highways will still be something to look at, to take into consideration as you start your day today. And also, if you're stepping out, it will be slippery because of the freezing rain we got overnight. We're still seeing light snow falling in the northern part of the province this morning. Well, down south, sunshine still on the way, though temperatures will be falling to about minus 10 and even minus 14 in some areas later. Winnipeg right now, minus 2. It's clear outside. Expect plenty of sunshine today, though it's going to get breezy from the west, and this will cause our temperatures to drop to minus 7 by the afternoon. And then we're going to see some clear skies tonight with temperatures falling to minus 14 before another mix of sun and clouds tomorrow. Southern region, the Westman, the Parkland, the Interlake region, sunny start. We're seeing temperatures between minus 1 and minus 8 at this time, and most of these regions will sleep towards minus 10 by the afternoon period. While up north, we're seeing temperatures near minus 14 at this time, but it's going to fall to minus 22 later today. With the wind chill factored in, it still feels like minus 30 up there. But Winnipeg right now, we're looking at minus 2, depending on where you are in the city, and it's clear outside.
Yesterday was really pretty. There was this moment in the afternoon in Winnipeg where it was sunny, and of course it was so mild, but then through the window there were these big snowflakes falling.
I noticed it. I noticed it.
Yeah. Actually, I was sitting at my desk and Heather said, Marcy, sun snow. And I didn't know what she was talking about until I turned around. So it's gorgeous. And then when I got home, I really noticed the blue sky by then, sort of in the early afternoon. And then there was still that frost on the trees, so that white against the blue. There's got to be some gorgeous pictures being taken out there.
I'm sure they're going to be gorgeous pictures, especially when we're just enjoying the January melt for now. But so enjoy it.
Unless you're driving. So let's get back to that again. Corey, anything to add to the highways here?
No, besides that closure on Highway 1 between Winnipeg and Portage la Prairie, no other issues that I've heard of yet. But if you do see something going on, you can give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, despite the warmer weather, it is not quite spring yet or spring cleaning time, but the Canadian Museum for Human Rights is going to take some time to tidy up. The museum will close Sunday, January 11th, that's this Sunday, through Monday, January 19th, a week for their annual maintenance week. But before they close, they're actually encouraging you to take advantage of these final few days of the Canada Strong Pass pricing. To talk about it early this morning, Aisha Khan is up, CEO at the CMHR. Hi, Aisha.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. Before we get into what you're doing on the cleaning week, I'm just curious, as you know, it's the new year. If you look back at 2025, what were the highlights at the museum in your view?
Oh, it was a big year for the museum. We had so many visitors come in to see our major exhibition, Love in a Dangerous Time, the story of Canada's LGBT purge. So opening that was a real highlight of the year, and we're lucky that we're holding it over for a few more months into the fall. So as you said, we've got Canada Strong Pass, and we hope, even for the next week until we've got those prices running, that folks come out and see it as well as the other exhibits. Just to note that the way that pass works, all youth 17 and under are free, and then young adults, so between 18 and 24, are half price. So going back to last year, Love in a Dangerous Time was huge for us. We also, our Be an Upstander program, which is our youth education program, brought hundreds of students to the museum for a big showcase from our schools across Manitoba, and then we expanded that throughout Alberta and other parts of the country, and saw a huge uptake in young people wanting to learn about human rights, and educators committing to doing that work through this program. So those were two huge things for us. And I think just given the news and what's been going on in the world, just having some hope that people are interested in learning about human rights, particularly young people, is really heartening.
If someone has never been to the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, how do you pitch why they should go and visit?
That's a good question. If you haven't been to the human rights, been to the museum is intended to meet you where you're at in your knowledge of human rights. It's a place that is intended to provoke you to feel something, to reflect. And of course, by looking at history, by experiencing human rights stories, it's surely a place that's intended to transform you in some way, transform your thinking, or give you something to feel, think about, and then hopefully do something with that. So inspire some action. And we know that human rights are fundamental to the way that we interact as human beings, who we are, the dignity that we're born with. And if you haven't thought about that, come to the museum, because you're surely to be touched. If it's something that social justice is something that is part of who you are and what you think about or what you do for a living, how you want to spend your time, there's lots to learn. And making those connections between stories is something that I think people don't often think about, and the way the museum is set out gives you the opportunity to do that.
This week that you'll be closed, just to return to that, what actually goes on during maintenance week? Like, is it literally just a full top to bottom cleaning, or you'll change out exhibits? What's happening?
Yeah, so it's a week that we take annually, and this is something that museums do. So we close to the public. So as you said, we absolutely clean all those hard to reach places. You've been to our museum. There are a lot of hard to reach places. There's lots of glass, and can be dusty corners. So we do all of that cleaning top to bottom for sure, when there's no public, of course, having access. But we also do things like make inspections on all of the digital interactives, make sure the technology is working within the galleries, and we're a very interactive and digital-focused museum. We do repairs and maintenance on all sorts of things, the walls, the cases, the infrastructure of the building. Sometimes that's our IT network. Sometimes it's the cases that hold artifacts. We clean out the cases, which means, it's an involved process of caring for the artifacts that are contained within them, taking them out, swapping things out.
Yeah.
So we do some rotations and things like that.
Just to return to 2025, because this is somewhat is also a look ahead question as well, Aisha. Obviously, a part of what you do, as you said, it's like it's a living museum looking at current issues as well. And local listeners might recall that when you put up an exhibit around the Palestinian experience, some people in our Jewish community were upset about the lack of consultation, sort of more fulsome consultation, and wanted to be included in that. I wonder whether or not in this year and also in this time in the world, one of the goals will be to think more about consultation, because you're a federal museum, obviously, of human rights, but you're living here in Winnipeg with our diverse community. So how do you approach that in 2026?
Yeah, I think not only because of the recent hate incidents, but of course that underscores that we absolutely have to be working together to not only promote human rights, but to make sure human rights are lived locally, nationally, internationally. So that is absolutely a focus of our work, particularly right now. With respect to the exhibit that we announced, Palestine Uprooted, we announced it in late November and had lots of reaction, both very positive and supportive, but also critical, as you just mentioned. The exhibit is not up, won't be up till the end of June. So it was just an announcement of things to come, along with a whole bunch of other upgrades to galleries and new exhibits and things like that. But to your point about consultation, the museum has always been built around the idea that we will develop our exhibits in a way that we work with the communities whose stories we're interested to share. So we will continue to do that, but that also means bringing everybody along who will be affected by those stories, engaging with them, remaining in dialogue, and bringing the general public together to have difficult conversations. We know more than ever we need to do that. Education is at the root of a lot of that work. So when we talk about the Upstanders Showcase or things we have going on right now, I mean, just coming up right after our maintenance week, we'll go right into International Holocaust Remembrance Day programming. So for 10 days, we have sort of activated our level 4, which is where we have the renowned Examining the Holocaust Gallery. We've got new interactives. Hannah's Suitcase is one of them. It's this really powerful activity that introduces visitors to a Jewish girl's experience during the Holocaust. And then we continue to run, it's a new exhibit. We opened it last year called Dimensions and Testimony. If I say to everyone, if you haven't seen it, please come. It is, it's an interactive that uses the real testimony over days of 2 Holocaust survivors, one in English, one in French. And you get to ask questions of the person on the screen, and you get real-time responses. I can't tell you how powerful it is to talk to a survivor in that way. Those are examples of ways in which we are working to ensure that the public understands that history, not only because it's important to the Jewish community, it's important to all of us. This vigilance against anti-Semitism is critical for all of us, and I think we're all feeling that right now.
Thank you very much for the time early this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is Aisha Khan, CEO over at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. The museum will reopen with the exhibits we were just talking about and hearing about to Holocaust Remembrance Week starting January 20th. But they will be closed at the CMHR for their maintenance. So January 11th until January 19th, you have a few more days to use that Canada Pass.
Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
Traffic update in Winnipeg. Zach called the commuter line. He says northbound Archibald at Mission is completely blocked by police vehicles. That is as much as we have to report, but you need to find an alternate route. So this is northbound Archibald at Mission. 788-3093 with any updates. Well, speaking of the news that is critical to try and understand, a lot of eyes on Minneapolis this morning. After yesterday afternoon, a 37-year-old Minneapolis woman was shot and killed by a U.S. ICE or Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer. The shooting victim has been identified as Renee Nicole Good, and that is according to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune and New York Times. The Trump administration has deployed more than 2,000 customs agents and ICE officers to the area in an immigration crackdown. Federal officials have claimed the shooting was self-defense against what they are calling an act of domestic terrorism. Footage of the shooting shows officers trying to stop a vehicle from driving away. Shots are fired through the front windshield. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz are pushing back against the federal government's account that the driver was attempting to kill the officers. Here's what Walz had to say in a press conference yesterday.
We won't let them tear us apart. We'll not turn against each other. To Minnesotans, I say this: I feel your anger. I'm angry. They want a show. We can't give it to them. We cannot. If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully, as you always do. We can't give them what they want. The hearts and minds of the people in this state are on our side. To Americans, I ask you this: please stand with Minneapolis. To Minnesotans, know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice. The State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are working on the investigation. We have activated the State Emergency Operations Center. State Patrol and Minnesota National Guard leadership is connected with the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the DNR, and Minnesota's Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We have activated dozens of members of the State Patrol's mobile response team. And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz speaking yesterday. Now, that's after an ICE officer shot and killed a woman in Minneapolis. Now, as you heard, Walz calling out Donald Trump and U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Here is Noem's response.
You know, Tim and I have known each other for years. We served in Congress together. We both ran for governor the same year and have served as governor at the same times. So we were colleagues, and we discussed what happened here today. We have two very different viewpoints of it. I talked specifically about the fact that we have laws. They need to be enforced. He knows that I believe sanctuary policies have protected criminals and placed a priority of them over the citizens that live here, and he knows we'll continue to do our work, and I encouraged him to work with us. We've never had a cooperative arrangement with law enforcement here. Whenever we've done investigations, whenever we've done police work, when we've been doing what we can to bring people to justice for the crimes that they commit, we haven't had the cooperation of the state of Minnesota or the city police here under the mayor's direction. If you talk to any of these federal law enforcement officers, they'll say that when they call for backup in a situation, that it's hit and miss. They were grateful today that the police chief and local law enforcement showed up at the scene and helped secure it to make sure that nobody was harmed and that the FBI could do their work. But I would encourage them to work with us, that we could form a partnership that would make sure that individuals have the opportunity to have a safe Minneapolis.
That was Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary for the United States. In her statement, she also said the officer who killed Renee Nicole Good was justified because it was in self-defense. That will be the question moving forward. Was lethal force justified? Also, there's a suggestion the vehicle had hit the officer, and different angles do appear to show this. But again, these videos are coming out. The FBI is investigating. The governor of Minneapolis, Tim Walz, disputes the federal characterization of what happened. Overnight, continuing through the afternoon and into overnight, a large large crowd held a candlelight vigil at the scene. This is less than 2 kilometers from the location where George Floyd was killed by police in Minneapolis in 2020. Coming up to news time, I just want to mention here once again that northbound Archibald and Mission is blocked by police vehicles. No further information. And Highway 1 perimeter to Portage and Highway 2 perimeter to Road 12 West. Closures due to poor winter driving conditions, blowing snow, and expected to stay closed till mid-morning. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's a spring-like start to Thursday. We're at -1 right now. Clear sky. It's going to be sunny all day, but our temperature is about to take a slide down to -7 this afternoon. That is still well above the seasonal high of -13. Well, plumbers are in high demand in Pimicikamak Cree Nation. The Northern Manitoba First Nation is dealing with a frozen water catastrophe. After a days-long hydro outage left hundreds of homes with frozen pipes and flooding, critical infrastructure in the community is also damaged. Federal, provincial, and First Nations leaders toured the community yesterday. Lead plumber brought in to do assessments, Todd McConnell, says it will take time to repair all the damage.
Trades, even in lower Manitoba, it's still hard to find a plumber right now. Now to get them to come up north to drop everything, that's even hard too, right?
Pimicikamak Chief David Monias has asked for help from the Canadian Armed Forces, while Federal Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs Rebecca Chartrand says it's not her decision to make, although she did not rule it out. Vigils were held in Minneapolis and across the U.S. last night to protest the shooting death of a 37-year-old woman killed by American immigration enforcement agents.
Say it once, say it twice, we will not put up with life!
Renee Nicole Macklin Good died during a confrontation with ICE agents. The head of U.S. Homeland Security says the officers were acting in self-defense, but these protesters dispute that.
We have the most backward country, the most racist leadership, the most captured democracy, and it is all falling through their fingers as we speak.
The killing comes as the Trump administration has been using more aggressive tactics to crack down on immigration violations. You can hear the latest on this story, as well as other national and international news, coming up on World Report at 7. Manitoba school divisions have submitted their plans to improve safety after a scary incident in Winnipeg a few weeks ago. The province ordered a review after a convicted sex offender grabbed a student in a bathroom of a St. Vital school. One of the few divisions to discuss its safety plan with CBC is Seine River Division, south of Winnipeg. Superintendent Colin Campbell says they plan to standardize protocols across all schools and do an audit of their security cameras. Campbell says finances will play an important role for cash-strapped divisions.
There is a grant available for any audits that are needed, but not for the actual material to install. So, for example, if we decide to increase the number of cameras that we need, that's divisional cost.
The province did not provide an update on the next steps in the process. Northern Manitoba's top health official has stepped down. Now, the province's most expansive health region is looking for a new leader. CBC's Eric Westhaver is in Flin Flon.
Northern Health Region CEO Raj Suda will be stepping down from his job effective later this month. In a statement issued Tuesday, the NHR confirmed that Suda had resigned. Where he'll be going next isn't yet known. Suda took over the job in March 2023 and joined the region after longtime former CEO Helga Bryant retired from the post. Suda said in a statement that it was an honor to serve the region and thanked health staff, leadership, and community partners. Health official Cam Ritzer is taking over as the region's interim CEO while the group looks for a full-time replacement. The NHR operates 14 health centers in the north, including hospitals in Flin Flon, The Pas, and Thompson. It covers just shy of 80,000 people. Eric Westhaver, CBC News, Flin Flon.
More than 40 companies have applied for exemptions under the Manitoba's new grocery covenant law. A government spokesperson tells CBC they include Walmart, Loblaws, Freshco, and Sobeys. Bill C-31 passed this summer, aiming to bring down the price of groceries by banning agreements preventing new grocery stores from opening. But the law won't help fill an empty space in Brandon. Sobeys has kept a space in Brandon shuttered ever since moving across the street 9 years ago. Brandon City Councillor Jason Splett.
if they weren't renting that building, would the price of groceries go down? I would suggest not. But still, it doesn't look good when a vendor rents a place and doesn't use it for their business.
The Brandon location isn't affected because the lease was in place before this new legislation came into effect. Sobeys has a lease on that empty building until 2028. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into this warm weather forecast. That's going to change today. Abby.
Good morning once again, Marcy. Yes, it's going to change, but we still get to enjoy this sunshine in the southern part of the province this morning. However, up north, we're still seeing light snow falling. Some regions in the north, we haven't seen misty conditions there at this time. Winnipeg, it's clear outside, -1. Expect plenty of sunshine today, though the breezy condition from the west will pull our temperature down to about -7 by the afternoon period. And then we see some few clouds later tonight before some clear skies. So for you stargazers, you definitely enjoy some clear conditions overnight. In the Pembina Valley region, modern wind clouds in the Morris down to Port Perry. We're looking at temperatures around -2 at this time. Also clear there. Plenty of sunshine on the way. Temperatures deep to -5 later today. Brandon towards Nipaway, you're sitting around a -9. Sunshine also coming your way today. Some breezy conditions this morning. Temperatures will be reaching around -9 for folks in the Westman region. For the Parkland region, Duffin tracking it towards Roblin. We're looking at -8 at this time. Cloudy conditions to start. However, the sunshine will break through as temperature settles around -10 later in the day. For Gimli, it's -7 and clear at this time. Sunshine also coming your way. Some light breezy conditions will follow that in the afternoon. You see your temperatures hover between -8 and -7 for most of the day. For the Power, Flin Flon surrounding communities, we have light snow and some misty conditions there. -13 at this time. We're going to see your high get to about -11. While for Thompson, -12. Partly cloudy skies and period of light snow off and on into the afternoon period. We'll see your temperature get to -14 later, though the wind chill this morning feels around -20, -22. For folks around the Tudule Lake region, it's -18 at this time. A good chance of light snow also. Temperature drop to -22 later in the day. And for Churchill, we're seeing ice crystals there, -18 at this time. It's going to stay steady around that temperature, though the wind chill is something to take into consideration as we get into the overnight period for folks in Churchill. It's going to feel close to -40. We're looking at -38, -39 at this time. So overall, we're going to be seeing temperatures sliding in the southern part of the province, while those, winter conditions will still continue up north. Winnipeg right now, we are getting close to 0. We're at -1 at this time.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
We need to update traffic. A couple things going on early here, Corey.
Yeah, right now the biggest issue is at Northbound Archibald at Mission. It's blocked by police vehicles right now. We did reach out to police. They couldn't tell us exactly what was happening there, but they did confirm that, in fact, that is an issue right now. They say do find an alternative route. Northbound Archibald at Mission blocked by police vehicles right now. As well, the highways is a big issue as well this morning. Highway 1 between Winnipeg, right at the perimeter, and Port Prairie completely closed right now due to blowing snow conditions. Same case for Highway 2 between Starbuck and Oak Bluff as well this morning. That's also closed because of poor driving conditions. I do see a bunch of plows making their way there on Manitoba 511, but the provinces do expect that to be an issue right through the morning rush hour. And finally here, Century and St. Matthews, the lights are flashing red right now. City says that signal crews are on the way. But for now, you want to treat that as a 4-way stop. If you do see anything else going on out there, you can give me a call on the CBC Commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Now that's enough.
Yeah, it's enough. Oh, Down on a Bike said he had a lovely time biking on the Red River this morning.
A little positive.
So there we go. Just got to end it on put a little bow on there. Yeah.
I didn't have a good time driving. Yesterday I found that it was sanded and salted, and today almost like they sheared off another layer and it was more slick over the bridges. So take it easy in the city too. Yeah. Good news, bad news, right? It always is when it's around 0. Thank you, Corey. 21 minutes to 7 o'clock. Crystalie Ramlakan is here now with our live business news report on CBC. Hi, Crystalie.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So let's go to the States. U.S. President Donald Trump says it's not clear how long the U.S. will maintain oversight of Venezuela. Trump does say his administration will be taking oil from the country. What more detail do we have this morning?
Yeah, so U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright says Washington will control sales of Venezuelan oil indefinitely. So Wright says the U.S. will start with backed up stored oil, and then going forward, the U.S. will sell the production that comes out of Venezuela. And Wright suggests sanctions on the country's oil sector will be waived to facilitate the export of its oil. And we know the Trump administration has also already seized a pair of sanctioned tankers transporting petroleum. Now, Wright, who is also a former oil and gas executive, says it will require tens of billions of dollars and significant time to get Venezuela's production back to historical highs. Venezuela claims to sit on about a fifth of the world's oil reserves, but observers say a quick ramp up of output faces obstacles, including old infrastructure. Now, Trump says 30 to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan crude will be shipped to U.S. ports, with the revenue placed under his control, which could be more than $2 billion. And that level of control could give the Trump administration a broader hold on oil supplies globally in ways that could enable it to influence prices. And of course, the Canadian oil sector is watching all of this closely amid fears that Venezuelan crude could eventually compete with and displace Canadian barrels. But some energy experts are brushing aside concerns that this will seriously threaten Canada's supply to the U.S.
Let's move to news that's closer to home. Office vacancy rates have dipped. More people are returning, though, to the office. Can you break down all these numbers for us?
So the Canadian office vacancy rate dipped last year for the first time since the pandemic, and that's according to a new report from CBRE, a commercial real estate agency. So the national vacancy rate stood at 18% at the end of last year, and that's down from 18.7% a year earlier, so just a little bit lower there. But, it is still much higher than it was in 2019 when a lot more people were probably working in the office. And the report says vacancies are trending down not only from rising demand, but also from little new supply and the conversion of office buildings for other uses. So since 2021, Canada has seen about 8 million square feet in office space converted.
And Spotify, for a final story this morning here, is trying out some new strategies to attract more video podcasters, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the streaming service is expanding its monetization program for creators, along with introducing new tools for video podcasters, as it aims to better compete with platforms like YouTube and Netflix in that booming market. So the Swedish streaming company says it has invested more than $10 billion in the podcast industry over the past 5 years to drive creator earnings, scale engagement, and build infrastructure. And so it's lowering the thresholds to join its monetization program a year after the initiative was launched. And the company says since launching the program, the average user now streams twice as many video shows per month. And the move comes at a time when platforms are jostling for video podcast creators with rising demand for video and the higher engagement it offers.
The ever-changing landscape of media. All right, thanks very much, Crystalie.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Crystalie Ramlicam with our business news on CBC. How you doing out there this morning? Getting through the first week? It always feels so long this week. Like, why isn't it Friday yet? Thursday, at least, folks. Abby always calls it Junior Friday. I love that. January 8th, we find ourselves at. It is still mild out there in Manitoba, but the temperatures will fall. So -1 in Winnipeg, the temperature does fall to about -7 this afternoon with gusty winds. The big closures in traffic we will continue to mention to you because Highway 2 between Starbuck and Oak Bluff is closed. Highway 1 between the perimeter at Winnipeg and Portage is closed as well. So those are big closures, and they're both due to blowing snow. And there's also a couple things going on around town as well. So give us a call if you have any traffic updates or things we previously reported this morning that are now open. Let us know, please. 788-3093 is where you can reach Corey on that commuter line. A little bit of music from Fontaine next. Indigenous singer-songwriter we featured on the show before, based out of our city here. She's been making great music over the past number of years. Lots of collabs with fellow Manitobans like Boy Golden. Her latest album, Good Buddy, was released last year to a packed house. This is Land Back. from that album.
Nothing wrong, you see. We've been standing peacefully. Blue and pink skies seem to ease my mind, and the feather that she's holding up so high gives me hope that we'll find our way. Time again we ask, land back. Blue and pink skies seem to ease my mind, and the feather that she's holding up so high gives me hope that we'll find our way. Sleep at night. It's the reason why I can't fall asleep at night. It's the reason why I can't fall asleep at night.
That's Land Back from Manitoba-based singer-songwriter Fontaine from her album Good Buddy that was officially released to, as I mentioned, a packed house late last year.
When thieves broke into the Louvre with a ladder, the ladder company quickly produced a tongue-in-cheek ad.
We are not involved in the robbery.
When the Oscars read the wrong Best Picture winner, an optometry chain made fun of the mix-up.
There's a mistake. Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
Newsjacking on a brand new season of Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Tomorrow morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
Oh man, that Best Picture moment, I still get cringing. I have a family member who I won't identify, but they do something super cute when things like that happen. They can't handle it. They're like, because it's like, oh, they really feel the humiliation, or what you would feel in that moment, and they just were watching and like, oh my gosh, like kind of curl on the couch and can't even look at this TV screen. Oh, that sure was a moment. It is -1 in Winnipeg. It's clear in the city. And next on the show, let's turn our attention to international news. Since the Gaza peace plan was accepted in October, there has been hope that the Rafah border crossing will open. Now, part of phase one of the agreement was that it would allow vital levels of food and shelter to Palestinians trying to survive the winter. The United Nations, though, and many aid groups have said that supplies are not coming at the necessary levels. And to look at it today and other aspects of the three-part plan, also referred to as the ceasefire agreement, Rami Khoury is with us, Distinguished Public Policy Fellow at the American University of Beirut. He's in Massachusetts this morning. Hi there.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being with us. So what can you tell us about the conditions that people are living under right now?
Oh, they're horrendous. It's, when you have a genocide, as has happened, everything is destroyed. The aim of the Israeli attack, which has been pretty much supported by the U.S. and England and other people and the powers in the West, has aimed to get the Palestinians to leave Gaza. They want Palestinians out. Even Trump has said this once or twice. The Palestinians can go to Somalia or somewhere. So the conditions are terrible. Water, electricity, medicine, schooling, housing, agriculture, every dimension of life has been physically destroyed to a large extent. Probably about 90% of the houses have been destroyed, and 90% of the Palestinian population of 2.2 million has been repeatedly displaced and living in tents mostly. And now you have situations where babies are freezing to death. This is unconscionable, but it's happening. And it's the first televised genocide in world history, and it doesn't seem to have elicited the kind of moral or political response that one would expect in a situation like this, which is puzzling.
The reopening of the Rafah crossing to allow that aid into Gaza was a condition of the first phase of this plan. It's something people in Gaza obviously are focusing on. Why has it not happened?
The assumption that by most people who know the situation is that the Israelis don't want it to happen. Israel has always, for the last 60, 80 years, has always wanted to control the movement of people and goods in and out of Palestine. Gaza was the easiest place where they could do this because they occupied it and they laid siege to it. And they don't want the free flow of people in and out, and they don't want goods to come in without their approving them, because they want life to continue to be difficult so that people would be prompted to leave and not come back. They've opened a few crossings, but even there, the goods that come in are inspected extensively, and many of the key items that are needed, including things like meat and dairy and vegetables, come in way below the required quantities and the agreed quantities in the phase one of the ceasefire. So the situation is one in which the control of the Rafah crossing seems to be one more element by which Israel wants to achieve its goals to get the Palestinians to leave Gaza by making life so difficult that they couldn't achieve with their military genocidal assault.
If we go through the plan, as I mentioned in the introduction, it was 3 phases. So where are we at in terms of your assessment of the first phase, and then what are the elements of phase 2 that have yet to be realized?
Well, phase 1 is the only phase that was fully agreed between both sides. Hamas said phase 2 and 3 are not within its jurisdiction. That has to be decided by all the Palestinian leadership. But phase 1 has been partially implemented. The Israelis pulled back. They only now control 55% of Gaza instead of the whole thing. But they haven't stopped their attacks. They continue to kill and displace Palestinians. About 415 Palestinians have been killed by Israel since October, since the ceasefire came into being. And they continue to make life impossible because of the control of things like water and medicine and food and shelter. So phase 1, the more important thing in phase 1 is they exchanged thousands of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails were released, and all the hostages, dead and alive, in Palestinian hands were released, except for one dead Israeli the body still has to be found. So it's a partial implementation that has relieved the intense assault on the Palestinians, but hasn't removed it fully. That life still is really, the conditions are deplorable for Palestinians.
And phase 2 is international stabilization. How far are we from this? Oh,
we're very far. It's just an idea on paper that has not been agreed. The negotiations that are going on now are mainly to try to agree on what to do in phase two. The Governance Committee of Palestinian Technocrats that would run Palestine, that's probably the easiest one to achieve and start clearing and rebuilding or whatever. And then that would include bringing in an international stabilization force. The duties and power of that force, the composition is not clear. Very few countries, if any, have agreed to be part of it. They don't want to come in as an occupying force to do Israel's job for it. And then the future rebuilding of Gaza and the governance of Gaza, the status of Hamas, all of these issues are big sticker items that have to be decided, as well as, when will the Israelis finally leave all of Gaza and stop attacking and killing people every day and allowing babies to freeze to death, which is what's happening now.
Thank you for your time today, Rami. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Rami Khoury with us, a distinguished public fellow at the American University of Beirut. We reached him in Massachusetts today. Now, he twice cited this, so I just want to let you know where that information is coming from. Reuters has reported, and CBC reporting, that a new baby died in Gaza in December due to exposure, citing a doctor who was working on the ground there. It is 4 minutes now to 7 o'clock. Still ahead in the next hour of Information Radio. Boy, we got an earful when we had Councillor Marcus Chambers on yesterday talking about 1 minute to pick up and drop off your kids in elementary schools. An idea that has actually taken the next step now to becoming a reality in Winnipeg. We're going to hear from a principal who's weighing in on that proposal in the next hour of the show. So stay tuned for that. Also, is that real? It's a question you might have asked yourself when you're scrolling social media or you're on Instagram. We're talking to an expert in the next hour about the best ways to tell the difference between AI and real content. And then at 10 to 8 this morning, alarm continues to spread among NATO allies over the Trump administration's repeated claims that the U.S. needs Greenland for its national security. What does this mean in terms of international affairs and for NATO? That is coming up in some more detail to advance it this morning. So that's coming up just before 8 o'clock. In a moment, I'm going to talk about highway closures and school closures. I have quite a list growing now, but first let's go to Heather Wells for our headlines at 3 minutes to 7.
Well, it is going to take months of work and millions of dollars before things get back to normal in Pimicikamak Cree Nation. That's according to the lead plumber brought in to do assessments in that community. A days-long hydro outage left hundreds of homes with frozen pipes and flooding. Critical infrastructure in the community also damaged. Todd McConnell says there will also be leaks behind the walls and growing mold. Manitoba school divisions have told the province how they plan to improve safety after a scary incident in Winnipeg several weeks ago. Divisions were ordered to conduct a review after a convicted sex offender grabbed a student in a bathroom at Darwin School. We're going to hear what one school division has planned to improve safety. That's coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So let's get to what's happening in the traffic situation. Then you'll understand when we have school closures. So we have in the city of Winnipeg, police vehicles blocking northbound Archibald at Mission. Find an alternate route. But on the highways, we have Highway 1 both ways between Winnipeg and Portage closed because of blowing snow and poor conditions. This is expected to stay closed till mid-morning. Highway 2 is also expected to stay closed because of blowing snow to mid-morning, and that is between Oak Bluff and Starbuck. So we're starting to hear from the area school divisions. Due to the Highway 1 closures, all buses in the Portage La Prairie School Division are not running. Hatarian and Oakville schools are also closed. In the city of Portage La Prairie, to be clear, school is on. Now, because of some of the other issues on the roads, we heard from the Franco School Division, Franco Manitoban, due to freezing rain, you should expect delays for several bus routes this morning. So parents, students, staff, if you're driving to the school, drive with caution. In the Prairie Rose School Division, Region B schools are closed today as well. So that is community schools, École Eustache, Saint Eustache, Institut Collegial, St. Paul's Collegiate, and St. Francis Xavier Community School. Also, Region B colony schools that are closed today include Barrickman, Bonhomme, Iberville, James Valley, Lakeside, and Waldheim. So those are the school closures right now that we have to announce. And Starbuck School, I just want to say, is also closed due to the highway closure. Buses will be affected in Oak Bluff also. So check first if you're in those areas. World Report is coming up next. It's -1 and clear in Winnipeg. Today our temperature drops to -7.
Today on The Current.
Jane Hollander, I wanted to introduce myself.
Okay.
Have you watched the program Heated Rivalry? Canadian show tells the love story of two gay professional hockey players. It has become a sensation. We'll talk about that show that everyone is talking about and if it will actually make real change in hockey culture coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
Rise up! Take a stand! Rise up! Take a stand!
Demands for justice in Minneapolis overnight at a vigil for Renee Good. The 37-year-old woman was shot and killed by an ICE agent yesterday. Mustafa Hassan lives in Minneapolis. He says many people in the city are living in fear.
A lot of people are moving around scared. They don't know if they're going to be actually going to work or to school safely and make it back home.
Federal and city officials are telling two very different stories about why Good was shot. The FBI is investigating the shooting. Minnesota officials say they will investigate the agent's use of force and assess whether laws were broken. Steve Futterman has more.
Say it once! Say it twice!
Hours after the shooting, thousands of protesters took part in a vigil last night.
It's indescribable how sad and how horrific this act of violence is.
This man wants ICE officials criminally charged.
Saw the video. I just totally thought it was murder, plain and simple.
The video has now been seen around the world. While the Trump administration still insists the actions yesterday were justifiable and in self-defense, Minnesota officials are not buying it. Not Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is bullshit.
And not Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough.
But Kristi Noem is not budging.
It was an act of domestic terrorism.
The Department of Homeland Security Secretary says the blame lies with Renee Good.
A woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle.
Others interpret the video quite differently. They see a relatively low-level confrontation quickly spiral out of control. The key question today is, did deadly force have to be used? Steve Futterman, CBC News, Los Angeles.
U.S. President Donald Trump is withdrawing the United States from 66 international organizations, treaties, and UN bodies. They include the long-standing UN climate treaty that underpins global climate negotiations. Critics say this marks the most sweeping retreat from multilateral engagement in decades. My World Report co-host John Northcott is here now to break it all down. And John, what is Trump doing here?
Marcia, the pullout from many organizations, commissions, and panels is extensive, from climate to labor and migration. Many are affiliated with the UN, but there are other international bodies as well. A little less than a year ago, shortly after taking office, Trump pulled out from the UN agency to assist Palestinians, the Paris Climate Agreement, and dismantled USAID, the country's international humanitarian organization. These latest moves are sweeping, including becoming the first country to pull out of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. That's the deal between 198 countries signed in 1992 that was the basis for what became the landmark Paris Climate Agreement. A member of a U.S.-based nonprofit advocacy group, the Union for Concerned Scientists described this latest move as a new low.
Why is this happening?
Marcia, it's fair to say there are both explicit and implicit reasons for doing this. The Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a statement saying these organizations were, quote, redundant, mismanaged, unnecessary, and wasteful, going on to say that they are a threat to U.S. sovereignty, freedoms, and prosperity. Implicitly, within days of capturing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, continuing to seize oil tankers around the world, and threatening Greenland sovereignty, all of this indicates the U.S. is increasingly going it alone when it comes to international obligations.
All right, thank you, John.
Thanks, Marcia.
My World Report co-host John Northcott in studio. Donald Trump says it is not clear how long the United States will maintain oversight of Venezuela. In an interview with the New York Times, he said it could be much longer than a year. Trump said his administration would be taking oil, getting oil prices down, and giving money to Venezuela. He also said his officials are getting along very well with Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez. Human Rights Watch says British law is significantly constraining the right to protest in the UK. It released a report today saying the current rules are fraying the fabric of democracy. Crystal Gomansing has more from London.
Peaceful protest is now being criminalised.
Yasmin Ahmed, the UK director of Human Rights Watch, says protesters are given conflicting information by police, subject to arbitrary arrest, and in the case of Palestinian Action protesters, arrested for simply holding signs.
3, 2, 1, look.
Peaceful demonstrators were taken into custody late last year for holding Palestinian Action signs outside the UK Ministry of Justice. The group is listed as a terrorist organization in Britain. But Ahmed says this is not about one group or one demonstration. It's about ensuring dissenting voices are heard.
What is really worrying to me is had Emily Pankhurst, who was one of the leading suffragettes, been alive today and doing what she did, it would be likely that she would now be in pre-trial detention, possibly under or having connection with terrorism charges.
As a part of a list of recommendations, Human Rights Watch wants the government to repeal or amend protest-related provisions in British law. It also wants an inquiry on the state of protest rights in the UK. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has in the past voiced support for peaceful protests, but so far there's been no official response to the Human Rights Watch report. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, London.
French farmers are back in Paris, surrounding the Arc de Triomphe with their tractors. They're blocking roads in the capital, protesting an agricultural deal between the EU and a group of South American countries known as Mercosur.
Au plus près possible de ceux qui peuvent nous porter des solutions, quoi.
This farmer says he's in Paris to bring his demands directly to the people in charge. He and the other protesters fear this trade deal will flood European markets with cheap produce, and local farmers will be undercut. EU members are expected to vote on the deal tomorrow. Australia will hold a public inquiry into anti-Semitism after the attack on Bondi Beach.
Our government's priority is to promote unity and social cohesion, and to go forward knowing that just like people who gathered that night on Bondi Beach were committing to, that light will prevail over darkness.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the Commission will investigate the role of anti-Semitism in the attack. It will also look at its prevalence in Australian society. 15 people were killed in the shooting on Sydney's Bondi Beach during a Hanukkah celebration. The father and son accused of carrying out the attack were allegedly inspired by ISIS. A report is due on December 14th. That date will mark 1 year since the attack. A remote First Nation on Ontario's James Bay coast is in a state of emergency, and it has been that way since Sunday. The water treatment plant at Kashechewan First Nation has failed, and the First Nation wants Canada's military to help evacuate the 2,000 people who live there. Jonathan Mignot reports.
Crews walk through raw sewage to move patients, medication, and equipment out of Kashechewan's only clinic. It's flooded because of a failure at the water treatment plant. Tyson Wesley is the community's executive director. He says the plan is to move everyone and everything to a nearby elementary school.
We are also in a influenza outbreak in the community, so there's a whole list of issues that are happening all at the same time, and the weather wasn't cooperating with us today, which is limiting our amount of water that we can bring in.
Wesley says the community is running out of bottled water. It's pleading for the federal government to intervene. That means evacuating residents to cities like Timmins and Kapuskasing. But so far, only a few flights have been chartered.
We are in a dire situation, and the response that we're getting is not good enough.
Indigenous Services Canada did not respond to CBC's request for comment by deadline, but Timmins has welcomed 35 evacuees so far. Mayor Michelle Beaulieu says the city can only take in people with medical needs.
We expect some more, but the majority will be going to other communities.
A new water treatment plant for Kashechewan could be years away. That's because the community sits in a floodplain and has been lobbying the government for years to move to a new location. But there's still no clear plan on when that might happen. Jonathan Mignot, CBC News, Sudbury.
And And Jonathan has more on this story on our Sudbury page at cbcnews.ca. Click local. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. How you doing out there? Well, it might seem like it's great because it's mild, but this mild weather being right around, -1 in Winnipeg is causing some problems with traffic. So we're going to talk about school closures and highway issues in just a moment. Also, Highway 1 from the perimeter to Portage-la Prairie has just reopened, but there are other areas that remain closed. So we'll get into that in a moment. Little slick out there. I'm RC Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and you're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube on CBC. In addition to covering how your morning's going on this Thursday, we're going to talk to a principal this hour. He's weighing in on the proposal to limit parents to just 1 minute of parking when picking up or dropping off their kids at the school. You wrote in and called in yesterday like crazy about this being an issue at your elementary schools across Winnipeg, so we're going to hear from that principal. Also, how do you tell if AI is real or not? We're going to give you some tips, and we continue to analyze what the U.S. has said about Greenland. We'll have an expert on to see how much this threatens NATO, so stay tuned. Right now, with other developing stories that are affecting your morning out there, here's Heather Wells from our News Center Live.
Good morning. Well, fire in St. Boniface has closed Archibald between Mission and Nairn. Now, initially, we were told it was northbound Archibald. I was just speaking with police right now. It is both directions of Archibald shut down now between Mission and Nairn. It's a narrow area, but there are up to 13 emergency units on the scene. Our reporter Megan Ketchison is on her way, and she will bring you the latest coming up at 7:30. Well, it could be months before damage at Pimicikamak Cree Nation is repaired. That's according to the lead plumber who was brought in to do assessments of a frozen water catastrophe. He says it's hard to get plumbers to head to the north, and that's not the only problems he faces. We'll hear those in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
And thank you, Megan, who's out there. Let's get into what's happening with these closures, and then we'll swing into weather and other traffic details. So Highway 1 perimeter to Portage-la Prairie is now reopened. Highway 2 from the perimeter Road 12 west is still closed. Now, I'm mentioning that because there's been blowing snow in these areas, and that has affected some closures, some schools. So the Red River Valley School Division is closing Starbuck School. Buses will be affected in Oak Bluff as well. Also, we have been told that buses in Portage-la Prairie School Division will not be running. Hatarian and Oakville schools will be closed. All schools in the city of Portage-la Prairie are open. In the Franco-Manitoban Division, due to freezing rain, expect delays for several bus routes this morning, and they're asking parents, students, and staff to drive, who are driving to one of the schools, to drive with caution. In Prairie Rose School Division, Region B schools are closed today, and that is community schools, École Saint-Eustache, Institut Collegial, St. Paul's Collegiate, and St. Francis Xavier Community School. Region B colony schools, Barrickman and Bonhomme, as well as Iberville, James Valley, Lakeside, and Waldheim, all also closed. And let me make sure I've got everything here. I think I'm missing one because it's been a busy morning. So Portage-la Prairie, we mentioned. Prairie Rose School Division, here it is. Prairie Rose School Division, Region B schools. I also just mentioned that. Okay, we are covered here. That list has been changing and growing. So take it easy out there is the big message, and check your schools before you go if you're in these regions. Okay, I mentioned as well that the temperature today is going to fall. So Abby, what's the actual forecast?
Yeah, before the temperature falls, we're going to enjoy some sunshine to start in most of the regions. While up north, we're still seeing those light snow falling towards Churchill and Thompson. For Winnipeg right now, -2, mainly clear outside. We will see the temperature hover between -2 and -5 this morning before those breezy conditions from the west pulls the temperature down to about -7 later in the afternoon. Then some few clouds will roll in overnight before we get to a low of -14. For the southern regions, similar conditions, temperatures hovering between -4 and -10 this morning, and then by the afternoon period we'll see -9s in most of the regions. Up north, the coldest story, we're seeing temperatures hover between -12 and -18 in most of the regions up north, but the wind chill is still a concern. It feels like -30 in some areas up north. But Winnipeg right now, we're starting at -2, mainly clear outside. Temperature is going to hover near -5 this morning before we dip to -7 later in the the afternoon with some breezy conditions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get into the city of Winnipeg now for other things affecting traffic.
Yeah, so the one other thing, obviously, besides Archibald, is Century and St. Matthews. The lights have been flashing red all morning. Last we've heard the city crews are on the way. Don't know when that'll be fixed, but I'll be keeping an eye on that. We'd love to hear some updates on that or anything else you're seeing out there on the highways or on the roads here in the city. Down on the bike, also phone, he said rapid transit as well as the river trail along the red is great for a bike ride this morning. So thanks for that update there, Dan. Give us a call on the CBC Commuter line for anything else you're seeing. 204-788-3093.
Well, what an issue this seems to be on some families' morning commutes. The 1-minute restriction that's proposed for elementary school pickups and drop-offs in Winnipeg has now passed its first hurdle. The idea was proposed by City Councillor Marcus Chambers to reduce congestion around outside schools, making it safer for students. The Riel Community Committee passed the motion yesterday. It now will go to the city's Public Works Committee. We had Marcus Chambers on yesterday saying he thinks this is important. We had a lot of you writing to us saying you don't think that 1 minute is enough time, but you also say that there's problems around schools. Now, if passed, parents could face fines if they park for longer than a minute while picking up or dropping off their kids. And Winnipeggers, as I alluded to, have strong feelings on both sides of this.
Susan Moskovich. Yeah, absolutely not. Especially in an elementary school, parents need the opportunity to come, talk to the teacher, see how their child's day went, make sure they have all their items. And people like hanging out and talking. It's a community. So in elementary school, it's all about community, getting to know people. So basically, you're taking that away from families if you make them leave.
Good morning, Marcy. It's James Slade calling. Having been a parent and raised my kids and seen what a disaster this can be around some schools, I would always take my kids to the end of the schoolyard or past into a residential area, park there and walk my kids in. It's way safer. And if they have to walk for 2 minutes, even in the cold, it's going to be fine. They're dressed for it.
So in a moment, we're going to hear an opinion from a principal who's going to weigh in. But first, CBC's Jim Agapito went out to an elementary school in Sage Creek in a pickup drop-off, a school that has a pickup and drop-off plan in place. They are already working to try and reduce traffic chaos before and after school. Here's what he heard.
Cam Johnson, the principal at École Sage Creek Bonavista, which is a K-8 school, French immersion school.
Heard a little bit about the proposed 1-minute drop-off and pickup plan. I'm curious, what are your thoughts?
I don't know what the sweet spot for the time is. The idea of looking at pickup and drop-off as a significant part of the school day that is actually happening outside of the bells, I think is super important because there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of kids trying to get into school, parents that are in a hurry as well. So doing it methodically, doing it with intention and having a good flow, I think is super important. So I think at least the conversation and then what comes from that conversation will be better than nothing.
What is your school currently trying to do to make pickups and drop-offs more efficient?
We're really lucky here in the new school. It was designed with that in mind. We're very fortunate here that we have a loop, like a serpentine loop that kind of comes around the front of the school. And the bus loop that's distinct and separate from that. So we're really lucky here. Again, it is that with intention and planning process. The first couple of days, there were long lineups. We had a lot of congestion, but then quickly we make the tweaks that are necessary and then increase the flow, message out to community. So we've been really lucky here this year, and we've seen community come together to make it work as well.
How many cars would you say are lined up in front of the school if you're to estimate? And what is the time frame? Like how many minutes are we going? How many students are coming in?
So we have 820 students in the building from K-8. And there's a lot of buses. We have 9 buses, I believe it is. And I don't know how many cars there would be, whether it's 30 or 40 or 100, which is not a ridiculous number here. So our dismissal bell is at 3:10, and parents start arriving at 3 or shortly after 3, and it gets quite full, that whole loop, and it might back up a little bit in both directions on the street. But bell rings at 3:10, and by 3:20, 3:22, it's pretty much done. It takes a lot of coordination, and truth be told, it wasn't me that did a whole lot of it. It's really the staff and teachers that are right there. So again, the design of this building is such that before the bell even rings, they're in learning communities and in areas that kind of get organized within themselves. And so that team of teachers has figured out a system of who's going when and first and at what time, and then the handoffs to parents. We are also in a building that has multiple entries and exits, which helps that process as well. So seeing how it was in those first couple of days, which was quite a thing, and then reacting to that and then making it better really through those smaller teams working together and then communicating with us that has the bigger picture, and then being able to communicate it out to families. That seemed to really work well. It can become chaotic for sure. It's almost not competitive, but something like that where you don't want to lose your spot in the queue, but also as you don't want to take someone else's spot, or you can feel the pressure of people around you. So there is the consideration to plan for of just human nature, I think, in those types of situations. So when you have the opportunity like we did, which is not necessarily the case in a lot of places, to plan for that, that's super important. And then the regular communication with families on with visuals on where to go and how to do it, and open the door for feedback as well. And I think that those are super important parts of the process.
So that was Bonavista Principal, Coal Sage Creek Bonavista Principal Cam Johnson, speaking with CBC's Jim Agapito about the proposal for drop-offs and also how it works in his drop-off pickup zone at his school. Now, Jim also had a chance to speak to a parent, Jennifer Lowe McKelleney, about how this current plan is working for them and their family.
I really appreciate how they have the bus pickup on a different area of the school than the family vehicle pickup and drop-off area. I think that helps a lot. I also think there are some rooms for improvement, and I'm looking forward to seeing that happen soon.
As a resident in this area, what's it been like?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of really patient parents and a lot of really patient community members. However, we are seeing some backups in the front of the school, through the roundabout, and down the road.
So CBC's Jim Agapito outside Coal Sage Creek Bonavista, a parent there, Jennifer Lowe McKelleney, weighing in. Many of you have as well. We're going to see what happens next here. As we mentioned, the next step has been taken. This is now a proposal for the 1-minute pickup drop-off for Marcus Chambers. What started us looking at this issue, it did pass the Riel Community Committee yesterday. Now it goes to the city's Public Works Committee for the next part of the process. Time right now is 7:22 Thursday morning here on CBC.
All right, what are we talking about? A new year means a fresh start. Okay, make a list for the year and take charge of your life in 2026. Look, I'm not talking about your to-do list. I'm talking about your watch list. Cross off Family Feud Canada, St. Pierre, and this hour has 22 minutes. There's no excuses. Dream big, people. Enjoy all your favorite shows on CBC TV or stream anytime on CBC Gem. Mic drop.
Well, issues in traffic in the city. Lights at St. Matthews and Century now completely out. A down light standard blocking the far left lane on Century. That's Garrett on the commuter line reporting. Mandeep says it's very backed up. City saying signal crews are on the way if they're not already there. So this is St. Matthews and Century. We'll have an update on what's going on around Archibald and Mission in your next news at 7:30. And on the highways, Highway 1 from the Perimeter to Portage, it's now reopened. Highway 2, Perimeter Road 12 West, is still closed because of blowing snow, and we expect that till mid-morning. There are some school closures as well to pay attention to in that area. Well, award-winning and Juno-nominated singer-songwriter Renee Lamoureux kicks off the new year with a brand new sound. Here's the title track of her new album, Love You, Love Me.
With the city in the distance, through the trees as we lie in the grass. My head rests in your nook under the sun, like we're the only two that exist. We say secrets to the wind and only she'd understand. For the first time we could breathe and be ourselves.
music for 2026 from Renee Lamoureux, local artist, award-winning Juno nominated. This is Love You, Love Me. It's the title track from a new album. Got to slide in something new Heather just brought in here. We now have both highways reopened. This just happened. Highway 1, Perimeter Portage. We knew that one, but Highway 2 has now reopened. And also they're saying that there's still, the closures were due to icy conditions. So we do still have school closures through those areas and some buses not running. And I'll try to get that list on. I will get that list on rather right after your local news at 7:30. Let's get to sports. Claude Fague is in still for Scott Regehr this morning. Hello to you.
Good morning, Marcy.
So Jets looking for any and all help tonight to try and end this 10-game losing skid.
That's right, Marcy. Well, you can't do worse than 0 for 10 unless, of course, you go 0 for 11. And that's what the Jets will be looking to avoid tonight as they host the Oilers. The Jets will be looking for their first home win since December the 13th. Now, head coach Scott Arniel says he's pushing his players to try and get more out of them to help snap out of this funk, but he's also asking the Jets fan base to step up and do what it can.
I feel for them, after what we went through last year and then what they're seeing this year. The only thing I ask is that if we ever need our fan base to help push us, now is the time to help push us. This is I know there's times it's been very frustrating for people to sit and pay money and come and watch and whatever, but right now, you're a Winnipeg Jet fan, this is when we need you the most. I need more from my players, and more from my coaches, and more from myself. I need more from our fans.
There you go. Puck drop from the Canada Life Centre is set for just after 7 o'clock local time.
Canadian curlers are ramping up for Milano Cortina now for the Olympics.
Yeah, Marcy, among the many winter sports Canadians will be keeping a keen eye on at the upcoming Olympics in Milano Cortina is curling. Canada has had its share of success at previous winter games from both the men and women's teams, but there has been a bit of a dry spell recently. In fact, neither side has won a gold medal since the Sochi Games in 2014. The mixed doubles team did score gold in 2018 in Pyeongchang, but there are high hopes that this year's squads, led by Rachel Homan and Brad Jacobs, who, by the way, skipped Canada to that gold in Sochi, can bounce back. Ironically, Jacobs beat out Great Britain's David Murdoch then, who now happens to be Curling Canada's high-performance director and eager to see his new teams perform.
Our athletes are actually, I think they're just ready to get in the plane. We've got our event this week, fine-tuning a few things, getting back on the horse a little bit. But in terms of where we're at, I think we're real good. I think we're comfortable. We've got a good plan in place. The athletes are up to speed about, some of our operations and logistics. So, I think now it's just let's get on that plane and let's go.
And the men begin play on February the 11th. The women will start a day before with their schedule.
Finally, an NHL Hall of Fame legend has passed away.
Yeah, Marcy, Glenn Hall was not only an NHL Hall of Famer and icon, he was a trailblazer in a career that spanned over 17 seasons. Hall, a Humboldt, Saskatchewan native, won 407 career games, 49 more in the playoffs. He also won a couple of Stanley Cups, 3 Vezinas as the league's top goalie, and the Calder as its top rookie. But perhaps the most eye-popping stat, he played in 502 consecutive games spanning from 1955 through 63. He also played 50 straight playoff games, and he did it all without a mask. Nicknamed Mr. Goalie, Hall was once asked how he was able to sustain that kind of longevity.
That was, 500-some games before you missed one?
You played 502 consecutive games in the NHL.
Isn't that ridiculous, eh? Like you worry about your job? I certainly wasn't going to let those kids come in and take my job. I stayed in there, and these kids like Johnny and Jock.
And you're talking about Johnny Bauer there. He passed away yesterday at the age of 94.
Wow. All right. Thanks a lot, Claude.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. That's Claude Fague with CBC Sports. Your news is next. This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. What a gorgeous start to the day. It is mild, -2 right now, sunny, but that temperature is going to start to slip down to -7 by this afternoon. And we begin in Minneapolis. From a vigil held in Minneapolis overnight for 37-year-old Renee Good. She was shot and killed yesterday in an altercation with immigration enforcement agents. The head of U.S. Homeland Security is calling the shooting an act of self-defense against a domestic terrorist.
But those at last night's vigil dispute that.
A member of our community was killed in this very spot protecting her neighbor. Her name was Renee. Her name was Renee.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says the state will carry out a full and fair investigation to, quote, ensure accountability and justice. Walz also calls the comments from the Trump administration propaganda. You can hear the latest on this story as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Well, here at home, an early morning fire has shut down a busy intersection in St. Boniface. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is at Archibald and Mission in that area. She's close to it at any rate and joins us live now. Megan?
Well, it's really hard to get into that area because you have Archibald. It is closed in both directions between Nairn and Mission, and so traffic is really backed up. I can tell you this much on Nairn. Now, what we know is the fire was called in about 3:30 this morning. There's about a dozen units that are on the scene and to put out this fire, and we expect that this is going to be closed for a bit this morning because of that fire. It's a very narrow stretch, so if that's a part of your drive-in, avoid Archibald between Nairn and Mission in both directions. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. Well, months of work and millions of dollars. That is what it's expected to take before things get back to normal in Pimicikamak Cree Nation. A days-long hydro outage left hundreds of homes with frozen pipes and flooding. Critical infrastructure is also damaged. Todd McConnell is the lead plumber brought in to do assessments. He says fixing the pipes is just the first step.
The main issue is just water getting into the house is an issue. Once we actually get it fixed, behind walls there's going to be leaks. You're right, black mold. You can't live in black mold. Rapidly grows.
And Federal Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs Rebecca Chartrand was part of a delegation of leaders touring that community yesterday. She did not rule out military help for Pimicikamak. She says, though, it's not her decision to make. A recent spike in hate-related crime in Winnipeg has seen swastikas spray-painted on a mosque and high school this week. It comes just days after vandalism at a Jewish synagogue and a Palestinian restaurant. Avram Sharaka is a Jewish Winnipegger who helps clean up all types of racist graffiti across the city. He thinks the province needs to do more to punish those who spread hate.
We have lots of people out there, good people with good minds and good hearts, who don't like seeing hate spewed against anyone. But we have a government that's not generally taking action, even when they have people on tape.
A provincial spokesperson says the Manitoba Prosecution Service now has about 10 to 12 Crown attorneys who are part of a hate crime working group. The Manitoba Association of Crown Attorneys says it would like to have more staff dedicated to prosecuting such incidents. Manitoba school divisions have told the province how they plan to improve safety after a scary incident in Winnipeg several weeks ago. Divisions were ordered to conduct a review after a convicted sex offender grabbed a student in a bathroom at Darwin School. One of the few divisions to discuss its safety plan with CBC is Seine River Division, south of Winnipeg. Superintendent Colin Campbell says they plan to standardize their protocols across all schools while looking at access points and cameras.
We are going to go through an audit internally just on our cameras, how many we have and where they're located and where they're pointing, and then who has the availability to view them.
The province is providing money to conduct audits, but Campbell says any new equipment will have to be paid for by individual divisions. Northern Manitoba's top health official has stepped down, and now the province's most expansive health region is looking for a new leader. CBC's Eric Westhaver is in Flin Flon.
Northern Health Region CEO Raj Suda will be stepping down from his job effective later this month. In a statement issued Tuesday, the NHR confirmed that Suda had resigned. Where he'll be going next isn't yet known. Suda took over the job in March 2023 and joined the region after longtime former CEO Helga Bryant retired from the post. Suda said in a statement that it was an honor to serve the region and thanked health staff, leadership, and community partners. Health official Cam Ritzer is taking over as the region's interim CEO while the group looks for a full-time replacement. The NHR operates 14 health centers in the north, including hospitals in Flin Flon, The Pas, and Thompson. It covers just shy of 80,000 people. Eric Westhaver, CBC News, Flin Flon.
You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Okay, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Because of conditions out there, here's the list of school closures and buses affected today in Manitoba. The Red River Valley School Division is closing Starbuck School. Buses will be affected in Oak Bluff this morning as well because of icy conditions. All buses in the Portage La Prairie School Division will not run. Hatarian and Oakville schools will be closed. All schools in the city of Portage La Prairie are open. From the Franco-Manitoban Division, due to freezing rain, delays for several bus routes this morning. Parents, students, and staff driving to schools, please drive with caution. And in Prairie Rose School Division, Region B schools are closed. Community schools, École Saint-Eustache, Institut Collégial, St. Paul's Collegiate, and St. Francis Xavier Community School. Also closed, Region B colony schools, Barrickman, Bonhomme, Iberville, James Valley, Lakeside, and Waldheim. That's the list. It should live online. And let's go to what's happening in the weather forecast with Abby.
Yeah, sunshine expected in the south, while light snow moving through the north this morning. Winnipeg right now, we're looking at -2, mainly clear outside. It's going to stay steady between -2 and -5 this morning before we see the temperature drop to about -7 this afternoon with some breezy conditions. In the Pembina Valley region, more than Wicklow, Alton and Morris, we're looking at similar temperatures, -4 in that region. It's going to hold steady and it's going to stay near -5 later in the day. For the Westman region, Dauphin towards Nipawin, we're tracking -10 at that part of the province. It's going to be sunny later. We're going to see a high around -9. Expect just that deep sometime later in the morning. For the Parkland region, we're looking at temperatures starting around -9 this morning. Some sunny conditions expected there also. Gimli sitting at -6 at this time, rather. Sunshine also on its way. The power of influence surrounding communities, we're looking at -13 there. Thompson is at -12, while Churchill is at -17 with some light snow and a wind chill near -30 this morning. But for Winnipeg, it's clear outside, -2.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
That's Abby Adeyemi. And now live, here's Corey Funk with more traffic news.
Yes, well, I'll start with the good news. Highway 1 and Highway 2, they were closed. Highway 1 was closed between Portage la Prairie and Winnipeg, as well as Highway 2 between Oak Bluff and the Starbuck due to icy conditions. So they are open now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's totally great conditions, so do be careful there on the highways. As also Century and St. Matthews. All morning, there's been issues with the lights. They were flashing out, but now they're actually completely out. We've heard from a couple callers. So that's caused some big backups. And there's also the far left lane on Century. There's a downed light standard that is blocking that far left lane. We have heard that emergency crews are on their way if they're not already there. And of course, if you're just tuning in, you'd miss the news. Just a reminder that northbound and southbound Archibald completely closed at Mission because of a fire in the area. And of course, we'll have more details in our news throughout the morning. If you do see anything else though going on, you can give me a call on the CBC Commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Now, speaking of calls, we should mention here that on the top story that also led our news and that a lot of the world is leaning into, which is the fatal shooting of a Minneapolis woman by an ICE agent yesterday afternoon, and the conflicting reports by the state and the city level and the federal level in the United States. We have been calling out to people who've previously shared space with us on the air from Minneapolis to talk to us here. I know a lot of Winnipeggers, Manitobans connect with the city because it's so close by. You can drive there. Many of us have visited there. And also, of course, when George Floyd was killed there, we talked to a lot of people. And so we do have calls out we've not yet heard back. So we don't have a live interview confirmed for you. But of course, the very latest details are online at cbc.ca. And you can read what we understand so far this morning. FBI, of course, are investigating. So we'll be waiting for answers for some time. The key question around the case this morning remains, was deadly force justified? So that we will stay on top of. It is 21 minutes now to 8 o'clock. And you might be scrolling social media and getting a lot more of this and asking yourself, is that what I'm seeing real or is it AI? It's a question you probably asked yourself, as I mentioned. If you're looking at videos or photos, a lot of the images look so realistic, it's really hard to know right now what's fake and what's not. We sent CBC's Sophia Peralta-Barone to ask Winnipeggers if they've ever been fooled by artificial intelligence.
Christina Bryan. I usually like to check the source, like who's posting it, and then verify, like on Facebook or whatever. I'll check, like sometimes I'll select their name and check their profile and check their information. Or I will do a Google search and search that story or whatever video they're posting to see if people are talking about it on Reddit or something like that and verify it that way.
And how often do you find yourself doing this?
Not often, because I don't like to click on those videos, because I find they're just fill up. If you start clicking on them, they just it's a clickbait. So it just keeps popping up so that they know, and I try not to do those.
My first name is Brian, and my last name is Gambalen. Usually not really, but there's some types of AI that I get stomped on, for sure, yes.
And what type of AI do you get stumped on?
Visual images. Sometimes you will look at the image and see it looks real, but after finding out that there's something irregular, especially the, movement of the image, you'll find out that, it's an AI.
My name is Rachel Yan. Yes, there have been so many AI radios. For example, they have some kids playing or talk about with the parents, but this is so young. They cannot talk the long sentence, but this is not true. I think maybe the AI will create it. So, I saw not of AI create the videos for the YouTube or for the phone, for the everything.
CBC Sophia Peralta-Barone talking to some folks at Assiniboine Park about whether they've ever been fooled by AI. Now, if you feel like you're seeing more type of this content, you are absolutely correct. At least that's according to my next guest, David Gerhardt, a professor of computer science at the University of Manitoba. Good morning.
Good morning.
How much more sophisticated is it getting? Because we took a whole course in this as journalists. We actually have a whole department at CBC that now help us verify images. We're having to get very serious about this. And I understand that some of the things we used to rely upon, to tell if something's fake, not necessarily are things we can rely upon. So what's your sense of how sophisticated this is now?
Yeah, the way we often say this is when you're looking at artificially intelligently generated content, what you're seeing today is the worst it'll ever be. It's always getting better. All of these little tells and tricks and things that seem to indicate that an image or a piece of text is AI generated. The companies building these tools are actively trying to fix these problems because they want the content to be as good as possible. So last year, maybe it was like people had 5 or 6 fingers. Well, people have the regular number of fingers now, and it's not a tell anymore. So these tells that we sort of try to learn and build into our structures, they will go away over time.
So having said that, let's talk about some of the things that might still be out there that could help people. So number of digits on someone's finger. What about blurry outlines, or what other things might people still look for just in case?
Yeah, this is one of the important tells, is looking in the background of the image. Often the main subject of the image is very good and very polished, but the edges of that main subject might be a little bit fuzzy. There might be some unusual things happening in the background. The horizon line might not line up properly, but this isn't always a tell, because if you think the Mona Lisa, for example, the horizon line in that image isn't lining up properly. And so many of these tells also apply to real world images, and so it does become more and more difficult to tell. And so as one of the previous people on the street mentioned, sometimes the sort of meta information, the information around the post is more reliable as a tell, right? How often this person posts, or how contextually relevant this image or this text is related to what you're talking about.
If you do want to source an image, tell us, literally walk us through what you're clicking on, or what other sites you might go to try to verify something.
Yeah, so one thing to do is to do a reverse image lookup, right? The Google or other search engines will allow you to put an image in and find other places online where that image is used. Any image that is sort of relevant to a news organization or something is often posted many times, but an AI-generated image will have never been seen before, and so there will be no result in an image lookup. But again, if I take a picture with my camera and post it online, it's never been online before either, so that's not 100% reliable tell. But combining these with other features is important. If you sort of do a right click on the image and look for image information of the image, right? Like whether there's a metadata tagging the date and time that the image was created or made. And then the other thing that's happening is some of these AI generation companies are starting to require tagging on the images. Like Sora videos, for example, are very, very difficult to tell from reality, but they often have a little Sora word floating around that says, yes, we know this is generated by AI because the AI company is putting that stamp on the image to tell us that.
It's interesting because you can talk about things that might seem sort of like we're looking if it's obviously fake, quote unquote, or like if it's incredulous. However, sometimes it's just a true image, but the context is wrong. So one of the things in our course was around the wildfires, and there were images, and some of them were correct images, but maybe from previous fires. So then you might share something, which obviously we were taught how to not do that wouldn't have been from Manitoba, but the picture is of a real wildfire in BC. So going back to source those things, is that also something that you're looking for, is the context of, you mentioned date and time?
Yeah, for sure. Does the image look like it is contextually relevant to the story that's being told, right? Does the date line up? Does the time line up? The reverse image search, as we said, can tell you whether the image exists at all, or also can tell you if it's been used many, many, many other times, in which case that's also probably inappropriate.
That's good advice. So you mentioned this is the best it's going to be. This is just going to get more sophisticated. Why in this moment are we seeing so much more AI-generated content on social media platforms?
Yeah, so part of the reason is that the social media platforms are not optimized for truth. They're optimized for engagement, right? The key metric that these companies are looking for is time on platform. How long do you spend on the platform, and how much content do you see? Because that also relates to how many advertisements you see, and that's the way that they get paid. And so anything that can keep you on the platform longer will be a win for them, a benefit for them. And so the content that comes from content creators or from your friends, that's part of it. But if they can sort of generate imaginary content, fake content, slop, if you will, and just throw it into your feed, if that keeps you on the platform, then they're happy about that. And it doesn't really matter to them whether it's true information or not, whether it's valuable information or not. It's just time on platform.
Are social media platforms, in your view, being transparent enough about the use of AI in their content?
Well, I don't think they're hiding it. I think that there are some of these companies that see this as a valuable thing, right? People seem to be watching this stuff. People seem to be clicking on it and looking at it, and engagement is their metric. So if I'm looking at it, that must mean it's valuable. So it's not like they're hiding it, telling you that they're not doing it. But I don't think we see this sort of plastered across the masthead saying we are now showing generated content. But if you look at the shareholder meetings, if you look at the conversations with some of the top management, putting AI generated content on their platforms is a thing that they're not shy about doing.
What's the legislation around AI content like right now? Like, we have a new federal minister in charge of AI and such, but what's the actual legislation look like?
Well, there isn't really much, and this is part of the frustration, is that the legislative picture is fragmenting around the world. A couple of years ago, in the States, there were big pushes for legislation. The AI generation companies were saying, please legislate us. But since then, of course, there's almost no legislation in the United States at all. And here in Canada, the AI minister last year said that he thought that we were sort of over-indexing on regulation, and he'd prefer to see more supports to encourage companies and industries to adopt these new models, to adopt these tools. And so looking at, trying to use more AI in companies and business ventures is great. But if there isn't regulation in terms of how that content is displayed to people and how that content is indicated or labeled, that maybe is a problem.
What's the worst? Like, what's at stake here?
I mean, to me, the biggest problem is the other side of the column, where we over-index on lack of trust, right? Like if we look at a piece of media and say, I don't believe this is true, then almost any media can be not true. And so the kind of the evidence of our eyes no longer applies, right? I can look at an image and say, I don't believe that's happening because it's probably AI generated. And so not only do we not trust the stuff that's fake, we also start to not trust the stuff that's real.
All right, David, thank you very much for this today. Appreciate the conversation.
You're very welcome.
That's David Gerhard with us, a professor of computer science over at the University of Manitoba.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world, staying on top of stories around the globe, and connected close to home. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
Still ahead, we've just confirmed that we are going to speak to someone who lives in Minneapolis. So we will talk to him after 8 o'clock about what is transpiring there. Yesterday, an ICE agent fatally shot a Minneapolis woman. She was 37 years old. And so we have conflicting reports about what happened from the federal government's explanation and also from the state. But we're going to talk to a Minnesotan coming up on the show. Also on the program after 8 o'clock, we hope you stay with us because Ian Fraze is back from Pimicikamak. He got back last night, and as you've been hearing in the news, he has quite a tale to tell. He was on the ground of that evacuated First Nation. He was among a delegation of federal and provincial leaders, including the Premier. They were visiting to see the damage left behind after the weeks-long power outage, and then by extension, the burst pipes and flooded homes and damage. He did get to see a home and talk to some of the plumbers, as you've been hearing in the news, that are trying to keep up with fixing things and get folks back there. But Ian is going to join us with a special report after 8 o'clock right here on CBC. Right now, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he's meeting with officials from Denmark and Greenland next week to talk about the Arctic island. U.S. President Donald Trump has said many times he'd like Greenland under U.S. control, and his rationale is to protect American national security. Ever since the U.S. military operation in Venezuela, though, these claims on Greenland sound more alarming to Europe, and many are asking, what does this mean for the NATO alliance? Richard Chamouk is here to weigh in today on the latest developments, senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, who writes on defense policy. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So can you sum up the very latest of what European leaders are saying about this?
Certainly. I mean, it's pretty universal. I mean, there's some little nuances, but there's been a general condemnation of the comments and really an effort to sort of tamp down some of the rhetoric. I'd probably point out that even if within the United States, senior Republican leadership within Congress they're pretty loath to say anything bad about the Trump administration. Have also said that this is just not acceptable and it really risks undermining the Western alliance that has basically kept the U.S. and the Western countries secure for over 70 years here. So it's been pretty universal overall.
The U.S., some of their officials sound a little bit flip about no one's going to care if we go into Greenland. It won't affect things. This is a NATO territory. I mean, what's at risk here?
I think it's the alliance itself. I mean, an organization that is basically built on the concept of attack on one is attack on all, and collective defense having its most critical member that provides the majority of his defense capabilities and resources potentially take over another territory of another member just would basically undermine it completely and lead to its dissolving. So I think that's why you're seeing just such a negative response to some of these comments, to the extent where I think that the president himself actually backed away a bit yesterday, where he said, well, I'm the biggest supporter of the alliance and sort of that, because I don't think they, to what you said before, I don't think they realized just how badly the response would play out from even within their own country.
What does this mean for Canada? We somewhat had this conversation yesterday, but I'd love it if you'd weigh in. What does it mean for Canada and previous Trump threats of annexation for our country?
I think there's a bunch of ways to take it. It's difficult to know given, how the administration kind of operates in a very mercurial sort of fashion. I think if we think about some of the past crises that we've had here, a lot of this is driven by sort of, flip 24-hour sort of news cycle kind of comments that don't actually have much permeance in the thinking of President Trump, but really sort of, is maybe a negotiating tactic or some rhetoric to meet some sort of domestic political sort of need to say something, and really, again, doesn't have any substance in policy, right? So I would my general counsel is to say, for the government, and I would say they've actually been doing this, is to say, let's look at what's actually, the core things that we need to address, such as the trade agreement over USMCA and renegotiation there, or the long-standing issues on defense and security that far extend before this administration, and sort of address those, and not sort of get sucked into these sort of comments and having to address the whipsaw that this often produces. Again, I think Carney's statement yesterday, or day before yesterday, I should say, just kind of reflects that, and just trying to get beyond that and deal with these more pernicious issues and take a longer approach on them rather than getting sucked into this.
In terms of what might be a possible compromise between Denmark and the U.S., given that Trump's interest in that area will not change, what do you see there?
It's tough to know again, but I think that given that it's very, very unlikely that anybody in Greenland would accept, agreeing to become part of the United States, the U.S. already enjoys some pretty robust ability for access, to have bases on the island, and also access to minerals if it so desires to sort of invest in the country. So I can see some sort of effort to create a face-taking agreement that really doesn't change much of the status quo that already exists, sort of being offered, that the administration could waive to say, hey, we've got better access, but kind of just moves this issue off of the political ledger and gets allows the Western countries to deal with some of the more pernicious issues, such as with Russia and Ukraine or with China next.
Richard, thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's Richard Shamuka, Senior Fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. We reached him this morning in Vancouver. The latest on this story and more coming up at the clock on World Report. Now, of course, one of the big stories that is leading World Report today is what happened in Minneapolis yesterday afternoon. ICE agents fatally shooting a woman. And so we're going to hear more about that from the perspective of someone we have just confirmed is going to be on the air with us. So he is in St. Paul, which, as you know, probably from being down there, or may know just from being close to Minnesota. You may know that it's just 4 miles from Minneapolis. So he lives in that area and has for some time. He will join us with his reaction as people in Minnesota continue to react to this. So that's coming up for you after 8. Also after 8 on this show, we are going to hear from Ian Fraze, who's going to be live with us in studio, our CBC reporter from Manitoba here. An evacuated First Nation in the north is looking at weeks, maybe months, to repair all the damage after the power outage left homes and water pipes ruined. We're talking about Pimicikamak. Ian was there yesterday, and he will join us with his report from being on the ground. Speaking of reports, here's Heather Wells with other headlines.
Well, fire in St. Boniface is closed. Both directions of Archibald between Mission and Nairn. Up to 14 emergency units now on the scene. Our reporter Megan Ketchison is there as well and will bring us the latest. A recent spike in hate-related crime in Winnipeg has seen swastikas spray painted on a mosque and a high school this week. This just days after vandalism at a Jewish synagogue and a Palestinian restaurant. Avram Shirak, a Jewish Winnipegger, says the province needs to do more to punish those who spread hate. I'll be back with more Manitoba News at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather. Archibald and Mission still in issues you've been hearing in the news. St. Matthews and Century as well. We got down light standard there. We do have the highways reopened now. Highway 1, perimeter to Portage. Highway 2, perimeter to Road 12. But it's just been icy in the area, and there's a long list of problems with buses and school closures. Red River Valley School Division, Starbuck School is closed. Buses affected in Oak Bluff. Buses in Portage La Prairie Division are not running. And in Prairie Rose Division, there are some school closures as well. So you can check, please, the latest. The Franco-Manitoban School Division has also called it and closed some schools, so check the latest online at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Mild in Winnipeg, -2, but our temperature will fall to -7 this afternoon. After 8 o'clock, we'll take you live to talk to a Minnesotan, and then as mentioned, the latest on Pimicikamak. Right now, though, World Report.
On Cue.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. The Canadian filmmaker Zacharias Canuck's new movie is a love story inspired by traditional Inuit stories he heard growing up. He'll be here to tell you about it and what he hopes his films can give audiences 100 years from now.
I wanted to create the past so I could have something to work with.
Cue. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Have you watched the program? Heated Rivalry, Canadian show, tells the love story of 2 gay professional hockey players. It has become a sensation. We'll talk about that show that everyone is talking about and if it will actually make real change in hockey culture.
Can I go?
Coming up on The Current.
This is World Report.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
A member of our community was killed in this very spot protecting her neighbor. Her name was Renee. Her name was Renee.
Protesters are still in the streets in Minneapolis. They are demanding justice for 37-year-old Renee Good. She was killed by ICE agents during an immigration raid yesterday. Minnesota officials are furious.
When the Constitution is under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back! ICE out of New York!
Last night, people protested against ICE across the United States, in New York, Sacramento, and Orlando. Now the Trump administration is doing damage control, and the CBC's Willie Lowry is tracking the latest in our Washington bureau. Willie, the White House and officials in Minneapolis have very different takes on why Renee Good was shot. What are they saying?
Yeah, one event, multiple videos, and two very different perspectives of what happened. President Donald Trump posted about the incident at least twice on social media, calling the killing justified. His Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem accused the woman, Renee Nicole Good, of weaponizing her car.
This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism.
State and local officials, however, are incensed over the Trump administration's characterization of events and the loss of life. Here's Minnesota's Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan.
Renee Nicole Good should be alive. She was killed by an ICE agent, and the video footage that we have seen with our own eyes tells a very different story from what we're hearing from Kristi Noem and Donald Trump.
Multiple law enforcement agencies are now investigating. What is the latest there?
The FBI is investigating the incident. Here in Washington, Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has been saying the masked ICE agent who pulled the trigger should be criminally investigated to the full extent of the law. That's a sentiment shared by Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry, who is demanding immigration and customs enforcement officers leave the city. At the state level, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension says it too will investigate ICE's use of force and whether any laws were broken.
Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. U.S. President Donald Trump says it is not clear how long the United States will maintain oversight of Venezuela. In an interview with the New York Times, he said it could be much longer than a year. Trump said his administration would be taking oil, getting oil prices down, and giving money to Venezuela. He also said his officials are getting along very well with Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez. But it is not clear how well the U.S. president is getting along with the leader of Colombia. President Gustavo Petro spoke to Trump on the phone yesterday after encouraging the citizens of Colombia to demonstrate against U.S. military action in South America. As Paul Hunter reports, that conversation appears to have eased the tension between Trump and Petro.
We spoke on the phone, said Colombian President Gustavo Petro, for an hour or more, describing his surprise call with U.S. President Donald Trump late yesterday. The same Donald Trump Petro had recently described as having a senile brain, part of a verbal cage match between the two leaders in the days prior, but especially since the U.S. under Trump moved in on Venezuela, arresting its president, Nicolas Maduro. Trump later seeming to suggest the same could follow in Petro's Colombia. The issue there, said Trump, drug trafficking. Tensions escalated quickly. Now, maybe not so much. In a surprise post on his Truth Social platform yesterday, Trump himself wrote, "It was a great honor to speak with the president of Colombia, who called to explain the situation of drugs and other disagreements that we have had. I appreciate his call and tone." Petro telling a large crowd in Bogota that he told Trump much of the ill feelings between the two stemmed from lies told by his political opposition. All of it after a day of national protest in Colombia organized by Petro against Trump. One Petro supporter telling CBC News at one of the demonstrations, Donald Trump is a man who is insane and has a sick mind. Trump says he'll meet with Petro at the White House sometime soon. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Cucuta, Colombia.
Ukraine says nearly 800,000 homes and businesses are in the dark this morning after a series of Russian strikes.
Ukraine's acting energy minister says the strikes targeted energy facilities in Dnipropetrovsk region in the country's southeast, and the area was in near total blackout overnight. Nearly 300,000 Ukrainians have fled the war for Canada, and about 10% of them have been living in Quebec. But those who hope to stay say it's becoming increasingly more difficult in that province. Natalia Weichsel has more.
Ina Cherevatenko welcomes her last client for the day. She's a massage therapist working in Montreal. Cherevatenko came to Quebec in 2022 after fleeing the war in Ukraine. But she says that even after learning French and planting roots in the province, her family's future here is uncertain. Like many Ukrainians, Cherevatenko came to Canada under the Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel, a temporary status that allowed Ukrainians to work or study. She was then hoping to apply for permanent residency through the Quebec Experience Program, also known as PEC. But late last year, the province canceled it.
The consequences of PEC closure is tremendous.
Alexandra Melnikova is an immigration consultant. She says the only option for those wishing to stay in Quebec is the Skilled Worker Selection Program, a pathway that is very selective.
Realistically, the only one option for them is to move outside of Quebec.
A petition at Quebec's National Assembly calls for permanent residency status for these Ukrainians. In a statement, the Immigration Ministry says it can't comment on the petition because it's still in the process of gathering signatures. Michael Shvek is the president of the Quebec chapter of the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress.
We have been in contact with the provincial government.
Shvek says he plans to meet with the immigration minister at the end of the month to discuss the future of those wanting to stay in Quebec. Natalia Weichsel, CBC News, Montreal.
Australia will hold a public inquiry into anti-Semitism after the attack on Bondi Beach.
Our government's priority is to promote unity and social cohesion and to go forward knowing that just like people who gathered that night on Bondi Beach were committing to, that light will prevail over darkness.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the Commission will investigate the role of anti-Semitism in the attack. It will also look at its prevalence in Australian society. 15 people were killed in the shooting on Sydney's Bondi Beach during a Hanukkah celebration. The father and son accused of carrying out the attack were allegedly inspired by ISIS. A report is due on December 14th. That date will mark 1 year since the attack. Close to 1 million Canadians are estimated to be taking GLP-1 medications for weight loss. They are drugs that mimic a natural gut hormone that controls blood sugar, slows down digestion, and makes you feel full. Now new research is showing what happens when you stop taking them. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa has more.
It just wasn't good enough for me to continue on with it.
Months after starting Ozempic, Heather White quit cold turkey. The Toronto resident said side effects, nausea, and digestive issues were too much.
The whole period was a struggle.
And she's not the only one to ditch the meds.
Around 50% of people are discontinuing treatment within 12 months of starting.
Sam West is the lead author of new research published in the British Medical Journal. It found that people who stop taking a weight loss drug regain the weight, returning to their original size in less than 2 years. Certain health benefits from the drugs, like lower blood pressure, were also reversed when people got off. In comparison, people who quit diet and exercise programs regained the weight at a slower rate.
What we found particularly shocking was just how fast weight was regained after people stopped taking medication.
Sometimes they can't stay on medicine because they've lost coverage or access to the medication, or they have side effects.
Sonia Reichert is a family doctor in London, Ontario. She says people are often surprised to hear that weight loss drugs are a lifelong commitment.
Obesity is a chronic disease, and like most of our other chronic diseases, like high blood pressure, we wouldn't imagine stopping high blood pressure medications.
One major drawback, majority of the studies in this new research didn't track people for longer than 1 year. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime. CBCnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio this morning on CBC. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. It's slick out there. It's so icy that early this morning, we did have some highway closures. Those are reopened, but we're having problems in the city of Winnipeg, and there are school division closures and buses not running in parts of the southern part of the province here. So we'll update that list in a moment. Currently, it is -2. We just got off the phone with a resident of St. Paul, Minnesota this morning. He's lived there for some 25 years. He is also someone that attends what's been happening with ICE interventions in his state. And he is reacting this morning to what happened yesterday, the fatal shooting and killing of a woman in Minneapolis by an ICE agent. So we're going to hear from him and why he says this moment to him is different from what happened with George Floyd. And so we'll hear why. Also this half hour on the program, we have a special report. CBC's Ian Fraze is back in Winnipeg. He spent the day in Pimicikamak Cree Nation yesterday, which has been decimated by a frozen water system because of that power outage that was days long. We'll hear more about what the First Nation is asking for moving forward and also what Ian saw on the ground. So that's a busy half hour coming up. Let's go to other headlines now with Heather Wells.
Fire in St. Boniface has closed Archibald between Mission and Nairn. A vacant one-story warehouse went up in flames early this morning. You can still see flames on the roof, according to our crew who is in the area. They've also been told this is not the first fire at that location. Our reporter Megan Ketchison is going to bring us the latest coming up at 8:30 as well. Manitoba school divisions have told the province how they plan to improve safety after a scary incident in Winnipeg a few weeks ago. Divisions were ordered to conduct a review after a convicted sex offender grabbed a student in a bathroom of a St. Vital school. We'll hear some of their plans in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Speaking of school divisions, let's get through this list of problems here. The Red River Valley School Division closing Starbucks School. Buses affected in Oak Bluff this morning. All buses in Portage La Prairie School Division are not running. Hatarian and Oakville schools are closed. Schools in the city of Portage La Prairie are open, though. In the Franco-Manitoban School Division, delays for several bus routes this morning because of freezing rain, so note that. And if you're driving, they asked us to use caution. And finally, in Prairie Rose School Division, Region B schools are closed. Community schools, École St. Eustache, Institut Collegial St. Paul's Collegiate, and St. Francis Xavier Community School. Region B Colony schools closed. Barrickman, Bonhomme, Iberville, James Valley, Lakeside, and Waldheim. That is your list. We'll get to traffic in a moment, some more details. And first, though, let's look at the actual forecast, Abby.
We're expecting some sunny skies in the southern part of the province and tracking light snow moving through the north this morning. Winnipeg right now, we are at -3. It is clear outside. It's going to stay around -2 to -5 this morning in the city before we see the temperature fall to about -7 later this afternoon with those windy conditions coming from the west. Across southern Manitoba, we're looking at temperatures between -4 and -11 with highs near -9 in most of the regions. While up north, we're seeing current temperatures hover between -12 to -17 and expected to drop to -22 with a wind chill close to -30. But Winnipeg right now, -3. It is clear outside, sunshine on its way. Temperature will hold steady before we get to -7 later this afternoon.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Could be a little slick in the city of Winnipeg. Also, lights at St. Matthews and Century are out. Down light standard there is the problem. As you've been hearing in the news, a Mission in Archibald with a fire in progress, so problem in that area. However, highways have now all reopened, but take it easy. It'll be slick. 788-3093. Well, next on CBC, a special report. Premier Wab Kinew was among a delegation of federal and provincial leaders in Pimicikamak Cree Nation yesterday. They were looking at damage left behind because of this week-long power outage, burst pipes, flooded homes, sewer pipes damaged. Thousands are out of the community, many in Winnipeg. We know at least 200 homes need to be repaired. There's hundreds more that are being assessed. Now, First Nation leaders are demanding more help from those politicians who toured the community yesterday. But they were left with no clear solutions by the end of the visit. CBC's provincial affairs reporter Ian Fraze was also in Pimicikamak. He spent the day there. And after a late night back, he's in studio this morning. Thanks for being here, Ian.
Thanks for having me.
So I know that you actually had a firsthand look at some of the conditions there. Tell me a bit of what you saw and who you met.
Yeah, well, we dropped into one house right as the plumbers arrived, I spoke to one of the plumbers afterwards, and he's like, I just saw it on Facebook. This house needed help. He came down. The resident we met was Murphy Trout. He says one of his pipes started leaking the night before. So problems are still developing, and his crawl space had basically been filled up with water by that point. Take a listen.
Well, there's nowhere else to stay. I have to stay as long as there's a roof. Feel bad. No water running. Can't even do my laundry. Can't even clean up the house. Just have to boil water if I want to mop.
So he can't really do anything. No laundry, can't clean up. He wants to mop. We just heard him say there. You mentioned you caught up with some plumbers in the community. We heard a bit of that in the news. What more did they tell you about the extent of the damage to these homes?
Yeah, they say the issues are immense here. I mean, just for background here, we had 4 days without power, leaving a lot of pipes to freeze, and then a brief science lesson here: when water expands, that's when water expands when it freezes, and then once the water turned back on, these pipes gave way and burst, and that's what happened here. We have 200 homes that are unlivable at this point. Many more haven't even been assessed yet. So Randy Spence estimated there's probably 500 homes with issues here. Spoke to another plumber who's like, this could take weeks, even months to get everything done, and we're having issues with mold. Carpenters are taking out walls, all of this. Here's a listen, a little more from Randy Spence.
It will be a long process for us plumbers. I hope we get some help. I've been talking to the leadership, some leaders, if they want us to bring help from the outside, and I said, bring them. We need help.
There are 10 plumbers in the community already. So far, 5 have arrived. 2 more are coming, but frankly, they say that's not enough.
You can't keep up. So let's talk about help. Northern and Arctic Affairs Minister Rebecca Chartrand met with the chief and was there yesterday as part of the delegations. What did she say about the request for the military to be sent in?
She ruled it out, but then she wouldn't rule it out, I guess, at this point. But she's saying that military personnel might not be the right solution. Here's what she said during a scrum with reporters.
And so I think what's needed from my personal perspective is a local approach, right? We need to access all of the plumbers and technicians that are local. This is an opportunity to tap into, local and Indigenous owned businesses that can provide support. And that is what I also heard from some of this discussion is, sometimes when you hire larger companies, they subcontract and, it takes forever to get those projects complete. So there's an urgency here. To me, it makes sense. Let's scan, the region, see who we could pull in.
So this was a scrum with reporters, right? There is political leaders there, media all around, and I caught eyes for a brief moment with Garrison Satidi, NKO Grand Chief. And as she's saying this, he's shaking his head. So he doesn't agree at all. But it was a Pimicikamak Chief, David Monias, who jumped in unprompted and said this.
We want the Army to come and help. They can deploy the Army to other places where they're in need. We are in need here right now, back in the park yard, and I think they should be here. We need the Army. They can actually provide all the technicians and all the engineers and to mobilize in mass and get things done. And we exhausted our local resources. I'm tired. Everybody's tired here.
So we had Rebecca Chartrand saying earlier that, looking within the Canadian Armed Forces, there's only 8 plumbers. But as we're hearing from the chief, there's a belief that the military can get things done quickly and help people quickly and to sort of mobilize that resources. So that ask remains.
And I guess there's cleaning and stuff. There's other things that could be done that is just sort of, just sort of that manual work. So maybe his contention is that they could do some of that if they can't do the official plumbing.
And there's also the feeling that there are more people that want to help, but can Pimicikamak do they have the accommodations and the food to actually help all the people
to support the workers?
Exactly,
that'll come help. So after the tour, what's your understanding of the aid that will flow into the community in the coming days? Then,
at this point, more of the same. We have the Red Cross donating food and water. Chartrand is talking about that more funds will be coming, but at this point, there's not an estimate out there. There is still so much assessment and work that has to do. In terms of Wab Kinew, the premier, he was also a part of this tour. He wouldn't also make a funding commitment either, saying he was here to talk about his ask which was to get the military involved, echoing what the Pimicikamak Chief and Council has already asked for.
And what about timelines? How long is it going to be before the community can start returning to normal? Do you have a sense of that?
No, we don't. It's stark, to hear plumbers say this could be weeks, it could be months. It's stark to hear Chief Monias say that the elementary school might not be open until April. We do have 4,000 people evacuated as it stands. There is no timeline at this point for when they can go back. And again, we have probably hundreds of homes yet that haven't even been looked at.
Finally, I guess overall, as I mentioned, you just got back late last night and put this together for us, this report today. What's your assessment of what then came out of yesterday's meeting in Pimicikamak?
Yeah, we weren't there. That was a closed-door meeting, but the sense afterwards is that there is no firm commitments at this point. Chief David Monias, the Pimicikamak's chief, said at one point, and I'm going to quote him here, "We shouldn't have to have a meeting for us to be believed that there is a problem that's happening here."
All right, thanks very much, Ian, for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
You can see photos, video, and read Ian's report from being on the ground in Pimicikamak yesterday. Ian Fraser is CBC's Provincial Affairs reporter.
If it happened today, find out today. That's the power of having the news in your hand. Get late-breaking news from reporters across the country, straight to your mobile device. Customize your experience with news from your region and what matters to you. Whether it's big headlines, detailed articles, live events, or on-demand video, CBC News has got you covered. Connect to the world. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca.
.22 a.m. is the time right now, and as I mentioned, we're next going to take you to Minnesota for a conversation I had with a resident there at 8 o'clock. An investigation is underway after a woman was fatally shot by an Immigration and Customs Enforcement or ICE agent in Minneapolis. The woman identified as 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. It triggered a series of statements from officials, a vigil, a protest. Last night, hundreds gathering near the scene of the shooting. U.S. federal officials claim the act was self-defense. This comes from U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. She says the officer shot because he was, quote, fearing for his life, unquote. On the other hand, this is what Governor of Minnesota Tim Walz has said.
We've been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt. Just yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV. And today that recklessness cost someone their life. I've reached out to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and I'm waiting to hear back. Let me be clear. Donald Trump and his administration may not care much about Minnesota. That's been pretty evident. But we love this state. We won't let them tear us apart. We'll not turn against each other. To Minnesotans, I say this. I feel your anger. I'm angry. They want a show. We can't give it to them. We cannot. If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully as you always do. We can't give them what they want. The hearts and minds of the people in this state are on our side. To Americans, I ask you this, please stand with Minneapolis. To Minnesotans, know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice.
Now, this morning, as I mentioned, at 8 o'clock, I reached out to Wes Burdine. Corey reached him, actually. He lives in St. Paul, Minnesota, which, of course, is just miles away from Minneapolis, pretty much one and the same. He runs a queer soccer bar, the Black Heart of St. Paul. He also identifies as an ICE observer. He has lived in Minnesota for 25 years. Here's what he had to say today.
Good morning. Thank you.
So how are you feeling this morning, and what was your reaction when you heard this?
Yeah, it's been a rough couple of days. We have a very recently in our memory is George Floyd, and this event happened right next to 4 blocks from George Floyd Square, and I think it's been pretty tough to kind of process another police killing.
So obviously everyone's being cautioned this morning as FBI continue to investigate, what actually happened here. There's conflicting reports from your state officials and city officials and the federal government. How do you navigate that for yourself as a Minnesotan?
Yeah, I understand that you need to be polite because you're a journalist. I don't have to navigate it. It was a police killing. It was very clear from the video evidence what happened. And I'm very happy for Mayor Jacob Fry that he and Police Chief O'Hara were very clear about what happened, which is that there's a woman named Renee Good who was trying to get away from the police, from ICE, and she was murdered. So there's no question about that. We've all seen the video, and I understand that that journalists need to be a little bit more circumspect or whatever than I have to be. But all of your listeners, if they've seen the video, they know what happened.
How long have you lived down there in the Twin Cities area, Wes? And what's the I guess tension, if you will, right now, or the mood right now, if you will?
Yeah, so I've been here for 25 years. I own a gay bar, and one of the things that we do, like Renee Good and her family were people who moved to Minnesota to be in a safe place for queer people, which is what Minnesota is, what it was, what it tries to be. I certainly put a damper in that. And the mood, I would say, it is different. I referenced George Floyd. It is different than 5 years ago, because I think that there's a very clear reason for why this happened, which is federal intervention and federal forces who wanted something like this to happen, who were pushing for escalation. And that makes it different in terms of the chances of riots, like or the uprising that was post George Floyd. So there's a lot of anger, but it's very clear who the anger is toward. And post George Floyd, that anger was more unfocused. People were angry at everything, and people wanted to just burn everything down, right? There was a police precinct that still has been not rebuilt. It was burnt down, and that's different than this year.
What makes you say that one of the differences is that ICE and the feds were, quote, pushing for this to happen, or something like this to happen?
Yeah, so I'm an ICE observer. So I spend my mornings going around and making sure that trying to prevent ICE from kidnapping people. And so I've watched them a lot over the last month. And the amount of people, amount of ICE agents is insane. Even yesterday, or 2 days ago, excuse me, I was, I wouldn't call it detained by ICE, but I was watching ICE. They were in my neighborhood, 3 blocks from my house. So I was in my car watching them and then I pulled out on the street behind one of them, and then 10 cars immediately surrounded me, and about 20 agents were yelling in my face and trying to intimidate me. They are working at this to try to get as much response as they can, and there's no attempt to try to actually target, as they say, immigrants who are violent. They say that they're going after the worst of the worst, but they are. I watched them detain an elderly couple, an elderly Asian couple who were probably in their late 70s, and they don't care. They are a paramilitary force that do not care about who they impact. They just want to please their masters, which is getting as many people detained as possible.
There's multiple videos of what happened yesterday in this fatal shooting where this woman lost her life. And in one of the videos, it does appear that the vehicle does strike the ICE agent. Obviously, as I mentioned, the FBI will investigate. My question to you is, people are already drawing their conclusions on both sides of exactly what happened already. If we move forward, if this officer doesn't face consequence, for example, What happens to your city? What happens to Minneapolis?
Yeah, I want to first say there's zero evidence that there was a strike, as you say, of a ICE agent. It is quite clear that the ICE agent pulls their gun as Renee was reversing to do a K-turn to get the hell out of there. She wanted out of there. She did not strike an agent. What happens to our city? I think that there has been a lot of call for calm, and I do think that people will listen to that, and it is it is not like post George Floyd and the uprisings, and that is largely because we know that this is an external force. This is not Minneapolis police, who have their own problems, but they didn't do this, and we know that it's ICE, and ICE is this kind of external Gestapo that Trump has created. And so I think that will cause Minneapolis and St. Paul to respond in a way that is very focused, and not cause the level of chaos from the uprisings.
Wes, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
I spoke with Wes Burdine in St. Paul, Minnesota. He runs a queer soccer bar, the Black Heart of St. Paul, identifies as an ICE observer. We spoke at 8 o'clock. I apologize, we are late getting to the news, but that is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:32, it is -3, and the temperature started to slip, and it keeps sliding to -7 by this afternoon. Well, an early morning fire that has shut down a busy St. Boniface street isn't the first at that property. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is on the scene and has the very latest. Megan?
Well, we have aerial trucks that are pouring water onto this burning industrial building. It's basically a one-story building. It's vacant. And I was just speaking with the fire chief a few minutes ago, said that the call came in about 3:30 this morning when police were driving by and actually saw smoke pouring from this building. Now, as far as a second fire at this site, there's an outbuilding behind this main building, and that's where fire crews have been called to in the past. Now, what we're told is it's a vacant building, that fire crews had challenges getting into it, and they had to fight it from the outside because there were concerns about flammable liquid inside the building. They do expect to be here on the scene and have Archibald closed between Nairn and Mission for probably the next 4 hours. Every so often we'll see flames coming up again from the roof, but crews are now able to get inside the building to try and put it out. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. A Jewish Winnipegger who removes anti-Semitic and other hate graffiti says the province needs to do more to prosecute hate crimes. Winnipeg police are investigating swastikas painted on a high school and a mosque this week. This just days after vandalism at a Jewish synagogue and a Palestinian restaurant. Avram Sharak has been voluntarily removing hundreds of hateful tags since 2024. He was hopeful a year ago when the province said it was appointing a lead provincial Crown prosecutor to tackle hate crimes.
We know who the public prosecutor is prosecuting hate crimes, and that's, I think, a key. So we have to stay strong in the Jewish community. We can't shy away, hold our heads up high, speak out against hate against anyone.
A provincial spokesperson says the Manitoba Prosecution Service now has about 10 to 12 Crown attorneys who are part of a hate crime working group. Mandy Ambrose, a director in the Prosecution Service, has been designated to lead that group. Months of work and millions of dollars. That's what it's expected to take before things get back to normal in Pimicikamak Cree Nation. A days-long hydro outage left hundreds of homes with frozen pipes and flooding. Critical infrastructure is also damaged. Todd McConnell is the lead plumber brought in to do assessments. He says fixing the pipes is just the first step.
The main issue is just water getting into the house is an issue. Once we actually get it fixed, behind walls there's going to be leaks. You're right, black mold. You can't live in black mold. Rapidly grows. The Federal Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs, Rebecca Chartrand, was part of a delegation of leaders touring the community yesterday. She didn't rule out military help for Pimicikamak, but says it is not her decision to make.
Manitoba school divisions have told the province how they plan to improve safety after a scary incident in Winnipeg several weeks ago. Divisions were ordered to conduct a review after a convicted sex offender grabbed a student in a bathroom of a St. Vital school. One of the few decisions to discuss its safety plan with CBC is Seine River Division, south of Winnipeg. Superintendent Colin Campbell says they plan to standardize their protocols across all schools while looking at access points and cameras.
We are going to go through an audit internally just on our cameras, how many we have and where they're located and where they're pointing, and then who has the availability to view them.
The province is providing money to conduct these audits, but Campbell says any new equipment will have to be paid for by individual divisions. New provincial legislation aimed at increasing competition in the grocery industry will not help fill a long vacant retail space in Brandon. A shuttered grocery store has been sitting empty ever since Sobeys moved into a new location across the street 9 years ago. Sobeys has kept the lease on that empty space. Jason Splett is a Brandon city councillor.
Whether they're renting it or not, it's not a real win for the south end of Brandon, right? The win is when a business moves into there and opens shop.
The new law bans grocery stores and supermarkets from signing deals, preventing similar stores from opening nearby. But Brandon's location isn't affected because the lease was in place before the legislation came into effect. You can find more news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Thanks to the news department, also to all those who contributed to the show. Abby?
Sunshine in the south, and we'll see temperatures drop to -7 later, while up north it gets to -17.
And Corey?
Still,
mic off. There you go.
Archibald and Mission still very much blocked by emergency vehicles who are attending to a fire.
All right. Thanks to our Studio 15 crew as well. And thank you for listening to this edition of Information Radio on a busy morning. Stay safe out there. Have a great day. And take care. We'll be back tomorrow again right here on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa.
Yes.